The wind carried whispers of wrongness here. A heavy stillness hung in the air beneath the skeletal fingers of the shadow thorn trees, their barbs seeming to claw at the perpetually twilight sky. The whisperwind peaks were unforgiving territory for humans, even in the charted valleys, and this high pass, shrouded in swirling mist and ill repute, was decidedly off any known map. I clutched the worn wool of my cloak tighter, the gesture more for a phantom sense of security than warmth. The eerie lavender glow of the twin moons, Castor and Pollux, painted the sparse, hardy snow in shifting patterns, deepening the already profound shadows until they seemed to breathe, to watch, find the bloom, Alara, just the bloom. I murmured, the words instantly swallowed by the unnerving quiet. Then away. But nothing was simple about trespassing in the Shadowfen Pack's domain, especially not this forsaken stretch. Shunned even by the wolves themselves if the old tales were true. But grandmother's cough grew worse with each passing night, the rasp in her lungs a stark counterpoint to her fading warmth. The village physic offered no relief. I needed moonpetal bloom, the legendary flower, said to blossom only where the mountain's ancient magic bled close to the surface, thriving in the ethereal chill of the highest peaks. The fragmented scrolls I'd pieced together in grandmother's dusty attic spoke of its potent restorative properties if one could survive the journey. If one dared enter werewolf lands, my desperation outweighed my fear. Just barely, a dry twig snapped behind me. I whirled, heart leaping into my throat, hand instinctively going to the small pouch of protective herbs at my belt. Nothing but undulating shadows stretched between the gnarled trunks of ancient pines. Yet the silence felt altered, attentive, waiting. I forced myself onward, deeper into the oppressive quiet, guided by a faint thrumming sensation beneath a snowpack. My affinity wasn't just for salves and poultices. I could feel the subtle currents of life force, the threads of power woven through the wild world. And somewhere ahead, pulsing faintly, was an anomaly, a convergence of energy that resonated oddly in this desolate place. Another sound, the soft crunch of snow displaced by something large, closer this time. Speed became more important than stealth. I pushed forward, the strange energy growing stronger, pulling at my senses, and with it, a soft, silvery light began to filter through the thinning trees. The same pearlescent hue as the moonpetal bloom described in the scrolls. It had to be. I broke into a stumbling run, snow catching at my boots, the thin air burning in my lungs. The trees gave way abruptly, opening onto a small, sheltered basin cradled by sheer rock faces. A frozen waterfall cascaded down one cliff, caught mid-tumble like a crystal sculpture. And there, clustered at its base where meltwater pooled and refroze in intricate patterns, dozens of luminous silver flowers unfurled delicate petals, pulsing with soft light in the moon's glow. Thank the spirits, I breathed, relief washing through me as I stumbled forward. A low growl froze me mid-step. It wasn't the sound of any mountain predator I knew. It was deeper, resonant, vibrating through the soles of my worn boots and setting every nerve alight with primal terror. Running was instinct, but knowledge warned it was futile. You didn't outrun a wolf in its own territory. Slowly, deliberately, I turned. He emerged from the shadowed overhang of the cliff like a piece of the mountain night given form. Immense, easily twice the size of any timber wolf. His fur was the blackest black, thick and shaggy, blending seamlessly with the shadows until only the pale silver of his eyes seemed real, They burned with an unnatural light, cold and intelligent, and utterly devoid of animal simplicity. Ripples of muscle shifted beneath that dark pelt as he moved with impossible grace, his massive paws silent on the snow. Not just a wolf, a shifter, an alpha, judging by the sheer weight of power pressing against my senses, and laced through that power, like poisoned threads in a tapestry, was a wrongness, a corruption that made my nascent healing senses recoil, cursed, as if trespassing wasn't dangerous enough. I had to stumble upon a cursed alpha. My voice was a dry rasp. I swallowed, forcing words past the knot of fear in my throat. I know this is your territory. I meant no disrespect. Another growl, lower this time, touched with something that might have been dark amusement. A strange, shimmering distortion rippled around his massive form, and I instinctively took a step back. The shift wasn't smooth or natural. It looked agonizing, like bone ground against bone, like flesh fought against its own reshaping. When the shimmering subsided, a man stood where the wolf had been. If man was the right word, he dwarfed me, built like the mountain itself. Raw power etched into every line of his broad shoulders and deep chest. Midnight black hair, shot through with startling streaks of silver like moonlight on dark water, fell unbound past his shoulders. Wild and untamed, he wore only rough-spun black trousers, torn at the knee, riding low on lean hips despite the biting cold. His feet were bare on the snow. But it was the markings that drew my eye, a network of thin, black lines spreading across his chest and arms like fractured obsidian, pulsing faintly with the same wrong energy I'd sensed earlier. Ritual scars. Or something else. They seemed to follow the lines of muscle and bone, hinting at both immense power and terrible pain. His face could have been carved from the surrounding peak's sharp, high cheekbones, a strong jaw dusted with dark stubble, a mouth that looked sculpted for snarling, and his eyes, they remained those of the wolf, pale, piercing silver, burning with contained fury and an unnerving intelligence. He watched me not as a man watches a woman, but as a predator assesses unexpected prey. Lethal grace emanated from him, a sense of tightly leashed violence that prickled along my skin. The cursed energy rolled off him in waves, making the air itself feel heavy, charged. Disrespect. His voice was a low rumble, rough-edged, as if seldom used. The pack laws are clear, human. The penalty for trespassing in the Shadowfen is death. The way he spat the word human sent a chill deeper than the mountain air down my spine. How did you know? I smell it. His nostrils flared subtly. Fear, herbs, weakness. He took a step closer, the sheer force of his presence making me want to shrink back. And something else, faint, like sunlight after rain. I forced myself to stand taller, though my legs trembled. I came only for the flowers. My grandmother is dying. The moon petal bloom is her last hope. Please, please. A harsh bark of laughter, devoid of warmth. Do you imagine your pleas hold weight here? That I care for the frail lives of humans? Another step. He loomed over me now, a steady in shadow and restrained fury. You broke our law, invaded our territory. The price is forfeit. His final words resonated with chilling finality, but beneath the rage, beneath the cursed energy, I felt it again, that deep thrum of agony radiating from him, the curse, eating at him from the inside out. My healer's instincts warred with my fear. Then why haven't you killed me? I met his piercing silver gaze. You could have torn out my throat the moment your wolf scented me. My voice gained strength. Maybe we can help each other. You said you smelled herbs. I'm a healer, and I sense you are in great need of one. He went utterly still, the kind of stillness that precedes a lightning strike. But I couldn't stop now. It wasn't just my life on the line, but grandmother's too. I feel the curse on you. I pressed on, words tumbling out faster now. It hurts you, deeply. I gestured toward the glowing blooms. Let me propose a bargain. Let me stay. Let me try to ease your suffering. In exchange, I swallowed hard. In exchange for enough moonpetal bloom to save my grandmother. His laugh this time was raw, jagged, filled with a bitterness that echoed the desolate peaks around us. Ease my suffering. He closed the remaining distance in a single stride, crowding me until my back hit the cold rock face. His heat radiated off him, a stark contrast to the frozen air. You think your human remedies can touch a curse like this? This isn't some woodsman's ague, girl. This is ancient magic. Binding, corrupting. I know I can't break it. My voice trembled, but I held his gaze. But I felt the pain. Maybe I can help manage it. Make it less consuming. Ice crawled through my veins as his silver eyes seemed to pierce through me, searching for something. Hope, desperation. It vanished too quickly to be sure, replaced by that cold fury. This affliction doesn't just touch me, it poisons my entire pack. The pain rolling off him intensified at the admission, twisting with echoes of other suffering. I could almost feel them now, threads of agony stretching out into the twilight, connecting him to others trapped in this same darkness. Sacred pack bonds, warped by dark magic. Then let me help them too. The offer left my lips before I could fully comprehend the weight of it. But the desperation in his hidden pain called to the healer in me. I'll stay. For 6 months, I'll tend to your pack. Ease their suffering as best I can. I held my breath, waiting for his rejection. His attack. 1 year. The counter offer was swift. Absolute. His tone left no possibility of negotiation. You bind yourself to the Shadowfen pack for 1 full turn of the seasons. A year. A whole year in this cursed place, surrounded by suffering wolves and their tormented alpha. Grandmother. Could she wait that long even with the bloom? But without it, she had no chance at all. And if I refused this bargain now, I wouldn't live to see another sunrise. I need assurances. My voice shook, but I forced strength into it. The moon petal bloom for my grandmother goes now. Today, I won't stay if I don't know the cure is on its way. His eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering in their silver depths. And how do I know you won't flee the moment your task is done? You're the alpha. The suggestion felt dangerous, reckless. Playing with forces I barely understood. Make it a blood oath. Bind my word to your magic. I needed him to believe this deal was my only option. I swear I will remain for 1 year. Serving your pack to the best of my ability. If you ensure my grandmother receives the cure. He studied me for a long, unnerving moment. Head tilted slightly in that wolfish way. The silence stretched, broken only by the whisper of wind through the high peaks. Finally, a curt nod. A blood oath. But understand this. Healer, should you break it, the consequences will be far worse than death. A shiver traced its way down my spine despite my resolve. I understand. I need to write a note. In instructions for the brew, the curse binds us. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. None of my pack can leave Shadowfen territory. My stomach plummeted. Then how? There are ways. A muscle ticked in his jaw. Isolated traders. Mountain folk who still dare deal with cursed packs. For the right price. His lip curled faintly. I will see your bloom and your message delivered, along with enough supplies to see your grandmother through the year. He held out a large hand, palm up. A single black claw, wickedly sharp, extended from his index finger. The oath first, your word, bound in blood. I hesitated only a moment, then placed my hand in his. His skin was unexpectedly warm, calloused, sending a strange jolt through me at the contact. His claw pressed against my palm, a sharp point of pressure just shy of breaking the skin. Blood, intent, power. His voice took on a low, resonant cadence that vibrated through our joined hands, raising the hairs on my arms. Are you certain, healer? A blood oath is not easily undone. The irony was Stark sealing a deal born of desperation with the very kind of magic I sensed corrupting him. But I met his gaze. I'm certain. Then speak. I took a breath, trying to ignore the heat spreading up my arm from his touch, the way my own nascent magic seemed to stir in response to his proximity. I, Alara of Briarwood Village, swear to remain in Shadowfen territory for 1 full year and to use my healing arts to aid your pack to the best of my abilities. The words felt heavy, charged, settling into the very air around us. His claw pressed deeper, a sharp sting, a welling of warmth as blood beaded on my palm. And I, Cassian Vargos, Alpha of the Shadowfen Pack, swear to ensure your grandmother receives the moon petal bloom and necessary supplies, and I grant you sanctuary and protection within my territory for the duration of your oath. Cassian. The name fit him, somehow. Dark, powerful, ancient, strange energy swirled around our joined hands. Lavender mist weaving with the silver moonlight. His blood mingled with mine, and the sensation stole my breath like ice crystals forming along my veins, like shadows coiling around my heart. But beneath the cold, a spark, a heat that had nothing to do with the curse, spreading through me, making my own magic pulse in recognition. The curse recognized me now, bound me. I could feel it settling into my bones, a thin thread of darkness connecting me to him, to this land, to his pack. My head swam and I swayed. His free hand shot out, gripping my shoulder to steady me. The contact sent another jolt through me. Heat meeting ice. Done, he growled, releasing my hand almost abruptly. He stepped back, putting space between us. I stared at the small cut on my palm. It was already closing, the skin knitting together with unnatural speed, leaving behind only a faint, crescent-shaped silver mark against my skin, a permanent reminder of the oath, of the bargain I'd made. But more than that, I felt the oath's magic settle deep within me, a foreign presence intertwined with my own power, not actively corrupting, but there, waiting. Cassian's eyes fixed on the mark, his nostrils flaring almost imperceptibly. Welcome to Shadowfen, healer. His voice was strained, the silver in his eyes turbulent. Had the oath affected him too? Try not to make me regret my leniency. With that, he shifted back into his wolf form, the same agonizing, unnatural transformation. He threw back his massive head, and a long, haunting howl echoed through the peaks. Answering calls rose from the darkness around us, closer now, prickling along my skin through the newly formed bond. The pack. I was tied to them all now, however tenuously. What had I just done? I glanced back at the moonpetal blooms, their soft silver light a stark contrast to the encroaching shadows and the monstrous wolf waiting at the edge of the basin. Grandmother, I'm sorry. Hold on. Cassian's low growl pulled my attention back. He stood poised at the tree line, those intelligent silver eyes conveying a clear command, follow, now. Even in wolf form, the weight of his presence, the barely leashed power, was palpable through the bond. Taking a ragged breath, I turned away from the flowers, from the hope they represented, and stepped toward the alpha, toward my fate. This was going to be a very long year indeed. Following the massive black wolf through the deepening twilight was surreal. Cassian moved like smoke through the gnarled trees, his powerful form blending with the shifting shadows cast by the twin moons. He didn't slow his pace for my human limitations, forcing me to scramble over icy rocks and push through snowdrifts that snagged at my skirts. The air grew heavier as we descended from the high pass, the sense of wrongness intensifying. The cursed energy pressed against my senses, a physical weight that made my own magic flutter nervously. The silver crescent mark on my palm tingled, a constant reminder of the blood oath I'd sworn. There was no turning back, bound for a year in this cursed land, tending to a cursed pack, under the command of a cursed alpha whose very presence made my skin prickle and my magic stir in ways I didn't understand, whose wolf form radiated lethal power, but whose human form. No, I couldn't afford to think about that. This was about survival, about grandmother, nothing else. But the weight of his silver gaze when he glanced back occasionally, checking my progress, suggested it wouldn't be that simple. Nothing involving blood oaths and cursed alphas ever was. Through breaks in the skeletal trees, I saw the structure emerge from the gloom like a bad dream made manifest. Blackwood Keep. It rose from a rocky promontory, dark stone towers clawing at the lavender sky, their angles subtly wrong. Unsettling. Magic dark, corrupted magic had warped the very architecture. Windows seemed to curve into leering shapes, buttresses twisted like fractured bones, and vines of black. Thorny ice crept relentlessly up the walls, glittering unnaturally in the moon's glow. The entire fortress radiated a deep, ancient pain that resonated with the curse clinging to its master. Cassian growled softly, a low rumble in his chest, snapping my attention back. He had started toward a set of immense iron-bound doors that looked impervious to anything less than dragon fire. As we approached, they swung inward on silent hinges, revealing the darkness within. The entrance hall was a monument to decay. Vast marble floors, once polished smooth, were now cracked and stained dark. Grand staircases swept upward, their ornate banisters twisted into serpentine shapes. Dusty tapestries depicting hunts and battles hung askew on the walls, their threads faded, their scenes warped by shadow. Mirrors lining the hall reflected distorted images, catching movements where nothing moved, and everywhere, permeating everything, was that suffocating sense of wrongness, of ancient power corrupted. Shadows detached themselves from the corners, coalescing into forms that made my breath catch. More wolves. Some looked like Cassian's massive form, only smaller, their eyes burning with that same unsettling intelligence. But others, my healing senses recoiled. They were caught somewhere between shapes, frozen mid-transformation by the curse. A head with a human face distorted by a lupine muzzle. Arms ending in wickedly clawed paws. Bodies contorted into unnatural shapes. Fur coarse and patchy over oddly human skin. The agony radiating from them was a physical blow, but it was their eyes that held the true horror. Whether fully wolf or nightmarishly half-shifted, each pair of eyes held a desperate, trapped human awareness. They watched me with a mixture of suspicion, despair, and a flicker of something that might have been hope. It tore at my healer's heart. A shimmering distortion surrounded Cassian's wolf form. I stepped back instinctively as he shifted, the transformation seeming even more torturous here. Within the heart of his cursed keep, when it ended, he stood before me in human form again, clad only in those torn black trousers, the strange black markings stark against his skin in the dim light. Blackwood Keep, his voice echoed, rough and resonant in the vast hall. Your new home, healer. Now, perhaps we should discuss the rules that might just keep you alive for the year you've sworn to us. I forced myself to meet his intense silver gaze, ignoring the way my body reacted to his nearness, which was proving difficult. The air between us felt charged, making my skin tingle. My heart hammered against my ribs, loud in the oppressive silence. His sheer physical presence was overwhelming, all coiled power and raw masculinity that sent confusing signals through my fear. Dangerous. He was so very dangerous. I had to remember that. I'd prefer to know who needs my help first. A dark chuckle, eager to begin your service. He moved closer, and I resisted the urge to retreat further into the shadows. No rules first, then the pack. Transgressions are severely punished here. Fine. I lifted my chin. What are the rules? First, he reached out, catching my chin between his thumb and forefinger, tilting my face up. The unexpected contact sent a jolt through me, heat flaring where his skin touched mine. He smelled of pine needles, cold stone, and something wilder, more primal, something that made my pulse leap. You do not wander the keep alone. Ever. Certain wings, certain corridors. The curse lingers strongly. They are not safe for humans or healers. I tried to pull back, but his grip tightened infinitesimally. Through the blood oath's bond, I felt a flicker of something from him: satisfaction, possession. The magic binding us hummed, making the point of contact almost burn. Second, he continued, his voice deepening, your quarters are in the East Tower. You will remain there from moonset to moonrise. No exceptions. The curse, and those it affects, are stronger in the dark. How can I tend to the suffering if I'm confined half the time? His thumb brushed my lower lip, a fleeting, almost unconscious gesture that sent sparks straight to my core. His nostrils flared slightly. He could smell my reaction. Damn him. Heat flooded my cheeks. Would you prefer confinement at all times? I held myself rigid, heart hammering. No, then abide by the rules. He released me abruptly, stepping back. Third, the West Wing is forbidden. Utterly. That is where the curse was born. The residual magic would annihilate you. What happened there? The healer's curiosity warred with self-preservation. Understanding the source often aided treatment. His eyes flashed silver fire. Fourth rule. You do not ask about the curse's origin. You treat the symptoms. That is all. A low whine emanated from one of the half-shifted wolves nearby, a sound thick with misery. My magic surged instinctively toward the sound, wanting to soothe, to help. Cassian's head snapped toward me, his gaze sharp. Your power. His voice held a rough note. You truly wish to help them. It's who I am. What I do. I took a hesitant step toward the suffering wolf, but Cassian's hand clamped onto my arm, stopping me. Not yet. Lyra will guide you, teach you how to shield yourself. His grip was firm, inescapable, his touch sending another wave of unwanted heat through me. The curse resists healing, fights back, tries to corrupt the healer. You must learn caution. I looked up at him, suddenly understanding. Is that why the shift looks so painful for you? The curse fighting your own nature. Something flickered in those silver depths, surprise. Pain, masked too quickly by cold indifference. Come, I'll show you to your quarters. He didn't release my arm as he led me toward one of the grand twisting staircases. The other wolves melted back into the gloom, but I felt their eyes following us. Through the blood oath, I could sense them more clearly now, each a unique knot of pain, corruption, and trapped humanity. The corridors we traversed were lined with portraits, whose subjects seemed to writhe in their frames, faces blurring between human and beast. Suits of armor stood sentinel, rusted and warped into menacing shapes. Everywhere, the air felt thick, stagnant, heavy with decades of suffering. The main library. Cassian nodded toward a pair of iron-strapped doors. Lyra will grant you access during daylight. There are texts on managing curse afflictions. He gestured down another hall. The healing rooms are there, sufficiently supplied, I believe. We climbed another staircase, narrower and steeper, spiraling up into one of the keep's towers. My own chambers are at the summit of this tower, he said, his voice vibrating through the arm he still held captive. Yours are below. He pushed open a heavy wooden door, revealing a room surprisingly less touched by the keep's pervasive decay. A large four-poster bed dominated the space, draped in dark furs. A stone fireplace crackled with violet-tinged flames that cast strange shadows. Bookshelves lined one wall, and a sturdy wooden table and chairs sat near the arched window. The curse's influence is weaker in this tower, he said, finally releasing my arm. I rubbed the spot, skin tingling where his fingers had pressed. My presence dampens it somewhat. I looked up at him sharply. Is that why my room is so close to yours? To shield me. He moved toward me, crowding me back against the doorframe. No, healer. He braced a hand on the wood beside my head, leaning close until I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Smell that wild scent that scrambled my thoughts. I'm keeping you close because you are now a pack asset, and because I don't trust you not to seek escape. My heart hammered against my ribs as his other hand came up, his clawed finger tracing the crescent mark on my palm. The blood oath binds your word, but oaths are fragile things. Attempt to break it. His fingers closed around my wrist, thumb pressing against my racing pulse, and you will learn the price of defying an alpha. I forced myself to meet his gaze. Are you locking me in? He studied me for a long moment, his silver eyes seeming to strip away every defense, still holding my wrist, still close enough that his heat felt like a brand. Finally, he stepped back. No. Consider it an exercise in trust. He moved to the doorway. Dawn comes in fewer hours than you'd like. Rest. Lyra will fetch you when it is time to begin your work. He paused, turning back to pin me with that predatory gaze. Welcome to the Shadowfen Pack, Alara. Try to survive the year. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone in the shadowed room, not locked in. A test. But of my loyalty, my courage, or merely my ability to endure the oppressive weight of this cursed keep through the long, dark night, through the blood oath's bond. I felt the pack moving below, felt their pain, their corruption, their desperate, trapped humanity, and strongest of all, piercing through the gloom, I felt him, Cassian, a storm of power and pain raging in the tower above. A presence that made my magic hum and my body ache with a confusing mix of fear and fascination. A mournful howl drifted up from the depths of the keep, filled with an agony that clawed at my healer's soul. Another answered. Then a chorus, weaving a symphony of suffering that seemed to seep into the very stones. What had I bound myself to? I touched the silver mark on my palm, the skin still tingling from his touch. 1 year. I had to survive 1 year of this. If the darkness didn't swallow me first, even with a door shut between us. Her scent lingered sunlight and herbs and something indefinably female that stirred the beast coiled beneath my curse. It clung to my skin where I'd touched her. A phantom warmth against the constant chill of the blood magic poisoning my veins. I forced myself up the final flight of stairs to my own chambers, away from the pull of her presence in the room below. Through the newly forged blood oath, I felt her exhaustion, her fear warring with a stubborn resilience that pricked at my curiosity. And beneath it all, an unnerving awareness of May that made the curse twist deeper, whispering warnings I didn't want to hear. Her presence was a discordant note in the symphony of suffering that was my existence, bright, unexpected, unsettlingly pure despite the darkness clinging to her through our bond. Each flutter of her pulse echoed faintly through my own blood, distracting, dangerous. No one should be this aware of another being, especially not the alpha of his potential prey, or his healer, the memory of her magic. Reaching instinctively for the suffering wolf in the hall lingered like a half-forgotten promise, so different from the cold, calculated power of the sorcerer who cast this curse, so different from the magic of the healer who had betrayed us. No, I wouldn't think of Lyra's predecessor, wouldn't remember Muriel's gentle hands, her seeming kindness, right before she'd shattered our trust and allowed the attack that led to this damnation. But the curse fed on such memories, pain jot sharp and biting, lanced through my bones the familiar prelude to an uncontrolled shift, where a natural transformation felt like flowing water. The curse made it feel like shattering ice, like being flayed alive from the inside out. I reached my study, bracing myself against the cold stone hearth as my body threatened to betray me, to tear itself apart. Let your strength be your torment. The sorcerer's dying words echoed in the hollow spaces of my mind, as they always did when the curse tightened its grip. Let your bonds poison all you touch. I fought it back, focusing on the solidity of the stone, on the weight of my duty to the pack, on anything but the healer sleeping below, whose magic called to something ancient within me, something the curse hadn't entirely extinguished. A human. Reese's voice, rough with suspicion, cut through my struggle. You brought a human into the keep, Cassian. Have you lost your mind entirely? I straightened, forcing the curse back, though the effort left me trembling. My beta stood silhouetted in the doorway, his formidable frame barely contained by the opening. The curse had scarred him deeply, one side of his face pulled taut, skin mapped with the same black, vein-like markings that covered my own chest. His left eye permanently milky white, yet even half ravaged, he carried the undeniable authority of his rank, second only to me. His disapproval was a palpable force, a healer. I corrected. My voice strained. Bound by blood oath, she stays for a year. A healer. Reese's good eye widened, then narrowed into a dangerous slit. Another one. After Muriel. After what she cost us. The name struck like a physical blow. Muriel, the healer who had charmed her way into our confidence, learned our weaknesses. Only I shoved the memory down. Alara is different. Is she? Reese's laugh was devoid of humor, harsh as stone grinding stone. Another outsider appearing when we are weakest, offering help we desperately need. His voice dripped sarcasm, just like Marielle did. Before she disabled the wards, before she let him in, before the sorcerer, enough. The curse surged with my anger, my claws threatening to lengthen. Marielle was his creature, sent to pave the way. This girl, Alara stumbled into our territory by chance. I remembered her genuine shock at the pack's suffering, the instinctive way her magic reached out. She's not like her. You thought Marielle was different too, right up until the sorcerer stood in the Heartstone chamber, his hands dripping with her blood after she'd served her purpose. Reese's voice was raw with remembered grief and betrayal. We all know what happened next. I said, enough. The curse thickened my voice into a snarl. Yes, Marielle's betrayal led to this. I understand the price of misplaced trust better than anyone. Reese stepped further into the room, lowering his voice. Then why risk it again? Why her? Because we are dying. The admission felt like tearing open a wound. Slowly, perhaps, but inevitably, the pack weakens. The curse strengthens. We need something. Reese anything. And what stops this one betraying us too? Or being used against us. A blood oath. The words made him take an involuntary step back. She is bound to me now, to this territory. Reese was silent for a long moment, his scarred face impossible to read in the dim light. Then, a fractional lowering of his head, not submission, but acknowledgement of my authority, as Alpha commands. But the pack, they need to see her. Understand who she is, why she's here. At dawn, I agreed. For now, let her rest. Let the pack rest. I, Alpha. He turned, then paused at the door. I hope your instincts are right this time, Cassian. For all our sakes. As Reese departed, another presence made itself known. Lyra padded silently into the study, her movements slow, deliberate, hampered by the curse that kept her trapped in her aged wolf form. Gray fur, once sleek and dark, was now thin and brittle, her bones visibly twisted beneath. She'd been the pack's healer long before my time, long before the curse had stolen her human shape and crippled her magic. She had mentored Marielle, a fact that still haunted her shadowed, milky eyes. But her loyalty had never wavered, even cursed, diminished. She radiated a quiet wisdom, a strength forged through centuries of service. Her thoughts brushed against mine through the pack bond, clearer than most despite the curse's interference, carrying the weight of her years. The human girl in the East Tower, her magic feels clean, alpha, unusually so, like spring water, clean. I frowned. What does that mean? Not like Marielle's magic, which always carried a hidden edge, even when she healed. This girl's power, it feels older, more fundamental, like the echo of sunstone healers from the old legends. A flicker of hesitant hope ignited in my chest, quickly extinguished. Legends were cold comfort against a curse like this. You think she could actually help us? Lyra's mental voice grew cautious. I think her magic is unlike anything I have sensed in generations. But Marielle also seemed a miracle at first. Trust must be earned slowly this time. The memory of Marielle's betrayal was a wound Lyra still carried, blaming herself for not sensing the darkness beneath the surface. Let me work with her tomorrow, assess her abilities, see the truth of her power, a pause, and watch her closely for any sign of deception. Through the blood oath, I felt a sudden tremor of fear from Alara below, a nightmare, perhaps. Her magic flared in response, a wave of pure, untainted energy washing through the bond. Startlingly potent even in its unconscious state, it reached instinctively toward the pack's collective pain, toward me pain, brushing against the curse like cool water against fevered skin. The contact was startlingly intimate, soothing yet sharp. Each pulse of her magic through the bond felt known, familiar in a way that defied logic. It made the beast stir, not with aggression, but with a strange protective yearning, not like Muriel's calculated ministrations, designed to manipulate and deceive. Alara's magic was raw, untamed, reaching out even in sleep, pure in a way that felt both sacred and incredibly dangerous. The curse, agitated by this intrusion of light, seized on my distraction. Pain exploded behind my eyes, fiercer than before. This time, there was no fighting it. Black, vein-like markings spread beneath my skin as my body contorted, caught halfway between man and beast. My spine arched, vertebrae cracking and reforming with agonizing slowness. Claws burst from my fingertips, tearing flesh. My jaw elongated, teeth lengthening into fangs before snapping back with a sickening crunch. The beast within, harmonious before the curse, now tore at the bars of its prison. The memory surged, overwhelming me. The night of the betrayal, the Heartstone chamber, pulsing with ancient power. Muriel disabling the wards she'd sworn to protect. The sorcerer, Kaelen, stepping through the shimmering barrier, his eyes burning with triumph and grief for the mate or a pack conflict had cost him. "Did you truly think she loved you?" Kaelen's voice, laced with pain and dark magic. "She only sought the key to your defenses, the path to the Heartstone." The ensuing battle, my pack, ambushed, fighting desperately against Kaelen's forbidden magic within our most sacred space. Muriel turning on us, her healing arts twisted into weapons, shredding pack bonds, weakening us from within. Also, Kaelen could reach the Heartstone, my claws finding her throat, the flicker of surprise in her eyes before the light faded, necessary, unavoidable, but it had sealed our doom. Kaelen's scream of rage when he found her body, power darker than anything I'd ever faced gathering around him, drawn from forbidden sources, fueled by grief and vengeance, the curse taking shape, woven from his pain and blood magic. Let your strength be your torment, your bonds become poison. Let the Heartstone you guard feed your suffering. May you rot in your cursed keep until love itself proves your final betrayal. Find love, Alpha, and watch it wither in your grasp, or bind your mate to share your fate forever. This I swear by blood and bone. Through the blood oath, I felt Alara stir again. Her magic reached out, a whisper of light against the overwhelming darkness, instinctively soothing the jagged edges of my pain even as she slept. Another healer, another chance, another path to potential ruin. The beast wanted her light, the curse wanted to corrupt it. The man wanted solace he didn't deserve. I had brought her here to heal my pack, but as her, magic resonated through the bond, twisting with my own corrupted power. I feared I had only brought her here to suffer alongside us. Dawn approached, painting the cursed peaks in bruised shades of violet and rose. Below me, Alara Brayton slept, unaware of the storm raging within the Alpha she had bound herself to, unaware of the dangerous hope she represented. Spirits help us all. Howls dragged me from uneasy sleep. For a disorienting moment, I didn't know where I was. The bed was too large, the furs too heavy, the air thick with the scent of old stone, wood smoke, and something wilder pine needles and winter wind and male animal musk. Dante, Cassian. Then memory returned with crushing weight, the cursed alpha, the blood oath, the keep filled with suffering wolves, the oppressive weight of ancient magic gone wrong. Grandmother. I sat bolt upright, heart pounding. The moon petal bloom. Had Cassian kept his word? Was the cure truly on its way? Pale morning light filtered through the warped glass of the arched window, illuminated the room. I could see the details now: rich tapestries, faded and torn carved wooden furniture scarred by claw marks. Bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes whose titles I couldn't read from here, luxury intertwined with decay. Through the blood oath's bond, I sensed the pack stirring throughout the keep. A low hum of collective pain underscored by individual struggles against the curse. And above it all, like a storm gathering on the mountain peaks, Cassian's presence. Power and pain and tightly leashed fury, radiating from the chambers directly overhead. What had I agreed to? A year in this place. A year bound to this tormented alpha whose nearness made my own magic sing in disturbing ways. The thought sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the morning chill. My eyes fell on a bundle of clothing laid neatly on a wooden chest near the bed. Someone the thought was unsettling had left them while I slept. Practical garments, thick woolen trousers, a soft linen tunic in a deep forest green, sturdy boots lined with fur, sensible attire for the mountain climate, suitable for work. The adjoining bathing chamber held a large copper tub, tarnished but functional, already filled with steaming water, a small miracle of magic in this decaying place. Cracked mirrors reflected my fragmented image, pale, wide-eyed, but with a stubborn set to my jaw I hadn't known I possessed. I would need it. I bathed and dressed quickly, braiding my hair back tightly. Not just for practicality, but as a form of armor. These wolves, this alpha, would be watching for any sign of weakness. A sharp knock echoed through the room, even before the sound faded. I knew. The bond hummed, a resonant frequency beneath my skin, amplifying my awareness of his presence just outside the door. "Enter," I called. Surprised, my voice came out steady. Cassian filled the doorway, eclipsing the meager light from the corridor. He'd donned a simple gray tunic over his black trousers, the fabric doing little to conceal the sheer power in his frame. His silver-streaked black hair was pulled back loosely, revealing the sharp lines of his face. The black curse markings were stark against his skin. His piercing silver eyes swept over me, assessing, before his expression hardened into familiar indifference. Lyra awaits. The pack gathers in the great hall. The cure first. I lifted my chin, meeting his gaze directly. "My grandmother, you swore an oath." Something flickered in those silver depths. Annoyance. Or grudging respect. "I keep my word." Healer. He moved to a small, scarred writing desk in the corner, producing parchment, ink, and a quill. "Write your instructions. A trader departs within the hour. Your message. The bloom and supplies will go with him." I sat, acutely aware of him standing behind me, his presence a physical weight in the small space. His heat radiated across the distance, carrying that scent of pine and storm. Focus. Alara, grandmother. My hand trembled slightly as I wrote, keeping the message simple, reassuring, explaining I'd found temporary work, that I was safe, that this bloom, prepared exactly as instructed, would restore her strength. "The moon petal bloom requires specific preparation," I said, concentrating on the parchment. "Brewed under the full twin moons, steeped with dried rowan berries. The trader must understand the instructions precisely, The traitor knows the penalty for failure. Cassian's voice was a low rumble, closer than I'd expected. He understands the importance of his task. I turned, startled to find him directly behind my chair. He held out a crystal vial, the moon petal blooms within preserved perfectly, their silvery light pulsing faintly. If anything happens to her, the threat died on my lips. What could I possibly do to him? A faint curve touched his lips, gone as quickly as it appeared. You have my word, healer, bound by blood. Remember, both bloom and instructions will reach her safely. He placed the vial carefully on the desk beside my letter. Now, the pack awaits your assessment. The pack. Right. I rose, squaring my shoulders, pushing down the tremor in my legs. Time to face the suffering I'd bound myself to heal. I'm ready. His laugh was dark, humorless. No, healer, you're not. But Lyra will ensure you survive it. The great hall in daylight was worse than I could have imagined. What had been shifting shadows the night before resolved into stark, painful detail under the bruised light filtering through the high, warped windows. The assembled pack was a tableau of suffering. Wolves larger than any natural creature paced restlessly, their fur coarse, their eyes burning with trapped human intelligence. Others were caught in grotesque mid-transformation, a man's torso atop lupine legs, hands fused into massive claws, faces distorted by elongated muzzles and mismatched fur. The air hung thick with their collective agony, a physical weight that made my own magic ache in sympathy. Cassian's hand settled briefly at the small of my back, a fleeting touch of heat that sent an unwanted jolt through me as he guided me down the sweeping, damaged staircase. The pack parted silently, forming a tense circle around us. Most remained in wolf or half-shifted forms, but two figures stood out. One was Reese, the beta I'd glimpsed last night. His scarred face was grim, his one good eye assessing me with cold scrutiny, while the milky orb stared sightlessly ahead. The curse markings on his skin seemed darker today, pulsing faintly. He radiated a dangerous energy, different from Cassian's raw power, but no less intimidating. Movement near the massive hearth drew my attention. An ancient gray wolf limped forward, each step clearly an effort. Her fur was brittle, her bones twisted beneath, yet she carried herself with a quiet dignity that resonated with my healer's soul. Her shadowed eyes, though clouded by age and the curse, held a startling depth of wisdom and pain I desperately wanted to ease. My beta, Reese. Cassian indicated the scarred man with a nod. Reese offered no greeting, merely inclined his head slightly. And Lyra, Cassian's voice softened almost imperceptibly as the ancient gray wolf approached, our pack's elder healer, before the curse took her human form. Lyra circled me slowly, her clouded eyes seeming to pierce through my defenses. I felt a strange brush against my own magic ancient, weary, yet still potent despite the curse's corruption. She stopped before me, sitting back on her haunches, and looked up at Cassian, though no sound passed between them. I sensed a silent communication flow through their pack bond. She senses your magic is strong, Cassian translated, his voice close to my ear, his breath stirring my hair. Untrained, but potent, different. Lyra tilted her head, then looked pointedly at a young man huddled near the edge of the circle. His transformation was horribly incomplete, one arm ending in a clawed paw, patches of rough fur modeling his human skin, his face contorted in a permanent grimace of pain. Finn volunteers, Cassian said. He's young. The curse hasn't fully settled in him yet. Lyra wants to see what your magic can do. I knelt before Finn, instinctively letting my senses reach out. The curse felt like tangled, thorny vines wrapped around his life force, constricting, poisoning. But beneath the corruption, I can feel the pain, I murmured. Where it twists him most, I think. I think I can ease it. Lyra moved closer, her cloudy eyes fixed on my hands as I placed them gently on Finn's trembling shoulder. The entire pack seemed to hold its breath. I drew upon my magic, visualizing light and warmth flowing from my palms. At first, Finn relaxed under my touch, a sigh escaping his lips as the familiar golden glow enveloped the cursed flesh. His muscles untensed slightly, but then the curse reacted. Dark, cold energy surged up, slamming against my magic like a physical blow. It felt like plunging my hands into icy sludge filled with biting insects. My power flickered, draining at an alarming rate as the curse fought back, trying to taint my light, to pull me into its darkness. I gasped, staggering back as the taste of corruption like rotten cold metal filled my mouth. Black spots danced in my vision. But Finn's whimpers spurred me on. Gritting my teeth, I pushed harder, forcing my light against the encroaching shadows, focusing solely on easing his immediate pain, even if I couldn't unravel the deeper damage. My arms shook with the effort, sweat trickling down my back despite the hall's chill. The curse's energy felt viscid, invasive, trying to seep into my own magic, to follow the connection back to its source. Each heartbeat pounded in my ears as I battled to maintain the flow of healing while shielding myself from the backlash. Finn shuddered beneath my hands, torn between relief and the agony of the warring magics within him. When I finally pulled away, exhaustion left me trembling, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Nausea churned in my stomach from the lingering taste of dark magic. But Finn, his breathing was easier. The frantic edge of pain had receded from his eyes. He wasn't healed, not even close. But he was, better, helped. A collective sigh swept through the pack. Hope mingled with disappointment in the faces of those who could show it. Lyra's gaze was sharp, intense, fixed on me in a way that made unease prickle beneath my exhaustion. My vision swam as I tried to rise. Strong hands gripped my arms, steadying me. Cassian. I found myself leaning against his solid warmth before I could stop myself, the contact sending sparks through my depleted magic, his heartbeat a steady rhythm against my back, a counterpoint to my own frantic pulse. The curse markings on his chest seemed to pulse faintly at the contact. Enough, he growled, the sound vibrating through me. Lyra padded closer, her gaze shifting between Cassian and me with an intensity that made his grip tighten protectively. Something silent, urgent, passed between them through the pack bond, making tension radiate from his frame. What is it? I managed, my voice slurring with fatigue. Later, his tone brooked no argument. Rest is needed. I wanted to protest, to understand Lyra's reaction, but my legs felt like water. He was right. As he led me from the hall, his hand remaining firmly on my arm, I felt the weight of the pack's eyes, felt their desperate hope settling onto my shoulders like a tangible burden. Back in my tower room, I collapsed onto the fur-covered bed, every muscle screaming. I had helped Finn, yes, but the effort had nearly undone me. How could I possibly help an entire pack suffering under this relentless curse? Through the blood oath, I felt them all their individual pains, their collective despair, their fragile hope. And above me, a burning intensity, Cassian, his own turmoil reached me even through the stone floors, a complex storm of rage, pain, and something else I couldn't decipher. Protective instinct, frustration, hunger, my magic stirred weakly, wanting to reach for him even now. I touched the silver crescent mark on my palm, remembering the feel of his hand steadying me, the heat radiating from his body, the startling intensity when our magic brushed. He was cursed, dangerous, my captor by oath. So, why did my body hum with awareness whenever he was near? Why did my magic instinctively reach for his darkness, drawn to the ancient power coiled beneath the curse? A low howl echoed from the hall below Finn, perhaps, his voice clearer, less strained than before, one small victory, but as exhaustion claimed me, pulling me toward dreamless sleep. I couldn't shake Lyra's intense stare or the palpable shift in the pack's energy when Cassian had touched me. What was it they weren't telling me? What secret lay hidden beneath the surface of this cursed keep and its tormented alpha? The heavy oak door of my study slammed shut, the sound echoing the storm raging within me. Her scent lingered, that impossible mix of sunlight and herbs clinging to my clothes, tormenting the beast. My hands still burned where I'd gripped her arms, steadying her fragile weight after her healing attempt. The memory of her leaning against me, trusting despite her exhaustion, sent ripples of dangerous awareness through my blood, through the bond. I felt her sink into sleep below a bright spark against the oppressive darkness of the keep, her magic humming faintly even in rest. This bond, it was unlike the pack connection. That was ancient, familiar, now twisted by the curse into something agonizing, but this new tie to Alara, it resonated differently. Every tired sigh she took seemed to echo in my own chest. Every weary flutter of her pulse called to something primal, protective, possessive, that I'd thought the curse had long since scoured from my soul. I stalked to the narrow window overlooking the shadowed courtyard, bracing my hands against the cold, warped stone. The glass reflected my eyes more silver than gray tonight. The wolf too close to the surface. Below, I sensed her settling deeper into sleep, her magic instinctively reaching out, brushing against the pack's collective suffering like a soothing balm. Like starlight trying to pierce an endless night. What madness had possessed me, bringing another healer into this damned keep? But she wasn't like Muriel. The thought arose unbidden, unwelcome. Muriel's healing had been precise, controlled, each touch calculated. Alara's magic poured from her, instinctive, wild, fundamentally good, in a way that felt both dangerous and desperately needed. She'd faced me down over her grandmother, shown defiance where hardened warriors faltered. Even now, I felt her stubborn resilience through the bond, her quiet determination to help despite the obvious peril. The wolf approved, wanted to. No, I slammed the mental door shut on that path. My claws scraped against the stone windowsill as another wave of awareness washed over me, her scent woven into the fabric of my tunic, her warmth a phantom touch against my skin. The curse stirred, feeding on my agitation, but its familiar burn felt distant, muted by the lingering echo of her light. Dangerous. This was intensely dangerous. I had armored myself against any vulnerability after Muriel's betrayal, had focused solely on survival, on protecting what little remained of my pack. But Alara, she bypassed those defenses effortlessly, calling to both the cursed man and the primal beast in ways I couldn't afford. A howl drifted up from the lower levels, Finn. The pain in his cry was noticeably lessened. Her healing, however, draining, had worked. More effectively than anything Lyra had managed in years. Hope. A treacherous flicker in the darkness, almost as treacherous as the urge to go back down those stairs, to stand sentinel outside her door. 2. A sharp rap on my study door shattered the thought. Reese's scent, sharp with urgency. Time to face the pack's inevitable questions. Time to bury this disturbing awareness of the healer sleeping below. Some betrayals leave scars too deep for trust to ever fully bloom again. The war room, like the rest of the keep, bore the curse's mark. Maps bled into unrecognizable shadows on the walls. The heavy oak table was scarred by generations of use. And now, by the curse's twisting influence, those few pack members who could consistently maintain human form sat slumped in heavy chairs. Others, caught in painful half-shifts, paced the edges of the room like trapped animals, their grotesque forms casting dancing shadows in the violet firelight. Lyra lay near the hearth, her aged wolf form almost blending into the shadows. Even unable to shift, even weakened, her presence commanded respect. Her thoughts reached me across the room, sharp despite the curse's interference. The girl's magic is resonant, powerful. It interacts with the curse in ways I haven't sensed before. Not like healing, more like challenging it. She helped Finn, one of the younger wolves. Torvin spoke aloud, his voice rough, hope warred with exhaustion in his tone. We felt it through the bonds. The edge lessened. Easing pain isn't a cure. This from Kaelen, one of my oldest warriors, his face permanently fixed in a half snarl, fur mottling his jaw. We need the curse broken, not managed. Lyra's thoughts cut through the rising murmurs. There are ancient texts, lore forgotten even by most packs. They speak of curses bound to bloodlines, to places. I let out a low growl. We've scoured every scroll. Lyra, every legend. Not all. Her shadowed eyes fixed on me. Some speak of balance, of light magic countering shadow. The girl's magic, it responded to you differently during the healing. When you touched her, we all sensed it. A restless energy filled the room. Hope, that dangerous double-edged blade, began to rise like smoke. False hope. She's merely a healer, I stated, the words feeling inadequate even to my own ears. A healer who bargained with an alpha for her life, Reese countered, speaking for the first time since entering, whose magic affected the curse. Directly, however briefly. His good eye locked with Lyra's. What aren't you telling us, Elder? Lyra's thoughts came slowly, weighted with caution. The oldest legends, they speak of curses broken not by power alone, but by connection, by bonds stronger than blood magic. No. I surged to my feet, my chair scraping violently against the stone floor. Absolutely not. The curse deepens. Lyra pressed, her mental voice unwavering. We lose more of ourselves with each moon cycle. If there is a possibility, however faint, I said no. The curse flared with my anger, and I fought to keep my human form. The healer is here to tend the pack. Nothing more. This council is dismissed. I stalked from the room, but I felt their emotions swirling through the pack bonds. Desperation, warring with a fragile, newly kindled hope. This wasn't over. Reese caught up to me in the corridor outside my study, ignoring the warning growl rumbling in my chest. My beta had always possessed more courage than sense. You can't dismiss this, he said quietly, closing the study door behind us. You felt her magic react to yours. You saw what it did for Finn. I saw a temporary easing of pain that nearly killed her. I rounded on him. letting the silver fire bleed into my eyes. What exactly are you implying? Reese, you know what Lyra meant. He stepped closer, his scarred face intense. The legends. About mate bonds breaking curses, a snarl ripped from my throat, raw and savage. Fairy tales, perhaps. He didn't flinch. But our reality is bleak. Kaelen is losing his grip on human form entirely. Torvin's shifts grow more agonizing. Lyra herself fades daily. His voice dropped. How long until you cannot control the beast either? Cassian, how long until we are all consumed? The stark truth silenced my anger. I felt it myself, the escalating pain, the transformations growing more violent, the beast straining harder against the chains of my will. So what? I bit out the words. You want me to court her, to pursue this connection, to risk her on a forgotten legend. I want you to consider it. Reese's good eye bored into mine. The pack bonds don't lie. Your curse reacts to her presence differently. Even now, with her sleeping below, your own pain is lessened, your control stronger than it has been in months. I turned away, unable to refute his words. The proximity, even through floors of stone, seemed to soothe the curse's constant burn just slightly. And if I were to mark her, bind her to this curse forever, then she shares our fate. A risk she accepted, perhaps unknowingly. When she swore the blood oath, he moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the latch. Think on it. Alpha, explore the connection. See if the legends hold any truth. What more do we have to lose? Her, I whispered, the word barely audible. Her light, her future. We are losing ours regardless. Reese's laugh was harsh. Perhaps it's time we gambled on a fairy tale. Nothing else has saved us. The door clicked shut, leaving me alone with the crushing weight of responsibility and the terrifying allure of a potential salvation I didn't dare believe in. Through the bond, I felt Alara stir below, her magic a soft, luminous pulse against the darkness. Court her. Risk everything. Trust again. Marielle's face swam before my eyes, gentle healer, calculating betrayer. Then Alara's stubborn, brave, her magic pure light against my shadows, against my better judgment. I found myself moving toward the scarred writing desk, pulling out fresh parchment, an invitation, dinner, formal. Ridiculous for a cursed beast haunting a ruined keep. What was I doing? But my hand moved, quills scratching against the surface, and below me in the east tower, I sensed Alara beginning to wake. The invitation felt like lead in my hand as I stood outside her door. Preposterous. We were wolves, shadowed by a curse, not courtiers arranging a rendezvous, yet the pack's desperate hope. Lyra's cautious implications. Reese's blunt pragmatism. They pushed me forward. Are you asking her? Finn's hopeful thought echoed through the pack bond from somewhere down the corridor where he was undoubtedly lurking. To dinner, silence. His mental presence didn't retreat. If anything, I felt others drawing, near watching, waiting, meddling. I forced myself to knock, the sound overly loud in the quiet corridor. She opened the door, looking endearingly rumpled from sleep. Her hair escaping its braid in soft waves. Her scent, that maddening blend of sunlight and herbs, hit me with physical force. The beast stirred, wanting to pull her close, to bury my face in her hair. To point no control Cassian, her voice was husky. Sleep soft, sending an unwelcome jolt straight through me. Words failed me. When had interacting with a female become so difficult? The pack customarily dines together. A blatant lie, but necessity dictated. Your presence is anticipated. Her eyebrows rose, a spark of amusement in her tired eyes. Anticipated. From down the hall, I heard the faint thump-thump of Finn's malformed tail hitting the stone floor. Alara's gaze flickered past me, and I knew she'd spotted the poorly concealed audience. "Is this about the healing this morning?" she asked, her voice gaining strength. "Because I'm still feeling rather drained." "No, too harsh." I tempered my tone. "Merely dinner, a pack formality." She studied me for a long moment, her gaze steady, making me shift uncomfortably. The beast hated being scrutinized, hated feeling exposed. "You're a remarkably poor liar." "Alpha," she said finally. The amusement back in her eyes. A growl started low in my chest. This wasn't proceeding as I'd vaguely imagined. Behind me, I felt the pack's collective anxiety rise, their hopes dwindling as their alpha stumbled over a simple invitation. "Forget it." I turned, the beast too close. Control slipping. "Wait." Her hand touched my arm. Just a brief contact, but it sent fire through my veins. I didn't decline. I looked back, thrown by the challenge in her expression. Even exhausted, even surrounded by cursed wolves, she wasn't intimidated. "Dinner sounds. Welcome," she said. "Although I hope formal attire isn't required, my wardrobe seems limited to practicalities." Poorly stifled sounds of excitement drifted from down the hall. "I was going to flay my entire pack later. Suitable garments will be provided," I managed, feeling trapped by my own impulsive maneuver. "Then I accept." A small smile touched her lips. "Doing strange things to my insides. Try not to look so utterly terrified. Cassian, it's only dinner. Only dinner, of course. Nothing to do with ancient legends or desperate hopes or the unsettling way her magic resonated with mine." I muttered some form of acknowledgement and retreated before I did something truly foolish. Like inhale her scent again or think about how the curve of her smile made me want to That went splendidly. Finn's thought bounced alongside me as he appeared, tail wagging furiously. I snarled at him, at all of them, but their collective hope was a palpable wave washing through the pack bonds. What fresh hell had I just invited? Pacing was pointless, yet I couldn't seem to stop. From the warped window overlooking the shadowed courtyard, to the cracked mirror that reflected my own unease, back to the heavy oak door. Cassian's dinner invitation made no sense. Yesterday, he radiated barely contained fury. Today, he stumbled over words like a nervous boy, inviting me to dine while his pack lurked in the corridors like hopeful matchmakers. Through the blood oath's bond, I felt the shift in the keep's energy, an undercurrent of anticipation, focused not just on Cassian, but on me. What were they planning? A soft scratching at the door startled me. Opening it, I found the young wolf, Finn, waiting patiently, a bundle of dark fabric held gently in his jaws despite his malformed muzzle. He limped into the room when I stepped back, tail giving a hesitant wag. He deposited the bundle on the bed, then sat, watching me with those intelligent, pain-filled eyes. There was a vulnerability about him that tugged at my healer's heart. "Is this for the dinner?" I asked, lifting the fabric. It unfolded into a gown of deep emerald velvet, simple but exquisitely made. The curse had touched it, naturally strange. Shifting patterns like frozen smoke moved within the nap of the velvet, catching the violet light from the fireplace. Yet, Paradoxically, the subtle corruption only enhanced its strange beauty, made it feel like it belonged in this place of shadows and secrets. Running my fingers over the velvet, I wondered about its history, like the keep itself. It hinted at former grandeur now overlaid with darkness. The shifting patterns reminded me disturbingly of the black markings on Cassian's skin. Number stopped thinking about him. About his silver eyes that seemed to see too much. About the bond humming between us. A constant awareness of his presence in the tower above. Finn shifted, his claws clicking softly on the stone. Any idea what this dinner is really about? I asked him. He just tilted his head, but a definite gleam entered his eyes. Highly suspicious, as if on cue. Faint whispers drifted up from the corridor below. Lyra thinks it might work. Careful, she has sharp ears. The Alpha finds out. We're all scrubbing cauldrons. A prickle of unease traced my spine. What game was this cursed pack playing? I was here to heal, bound by an oath. Nothing more. It couldn't be anything more. Not with the darkness clinging to this place, to its master. Not with the way Cassian's tormented power called to something shadowed within my own magic. I looked back at Finn. Should I be concerned? A definite tail thump against the floor this time. Extremely suspicious. Yet, the dress beckoned. It had been so long since I'd worn anything other than practical tunics and trousers. And some treacherous part of me, the part I refused to acknowledge, wanted to see Cassian's reaction when he saw me in it. The velvet felt cool against my skin, the shifting patterns seeming almost alive. The fit was perfect, unnervingly so. When I caught my reflection in the cracked mirror, the fragmented image startled me. The deep green brought out hidden gold flecks in my brown eyes, made my pale skin seem luminous. I looked different, more substantial, almost elegant, like I somehow fit within the shadowed grandeur of Blackwood Keep. I rebraided my hair quickly, tucking a sprig of dried lavender, one of the few familiar herbs I carried, into the weave for courage. Focus, Alara, healing, grandmother, not the cursed Alpha, not the unnerving intensity in his silver eyes, not the way your magic hums when he's near focus. Something strange was afoot, and letting myself be distracted by a dangerously compelling Alpha was a fool's path. Finn led the way through the keep's labyrinthine corridors, his limp more pronounced tonight. Perhaps from excitement, more whispers seemed to follow us, fading like smoke whenever I tried to pinpoint their source. The tension in the blood oath bond tightened as we approached a pair of towering doors I hadn't noticed before, carved with snarling wolf heads. They swung open silently as we neared, and the breath caught in my throat. The dining hall beyond was vast, terrifyingly beautiful. Moonlight streamed through immense arched windows, painting the cracked marble floor in shifting patterns of silver and lavender. Hundreds of candles burned with violet flames, casting flickering shadows that danced between heavy, dark wood pillars. The long table dominating the center was polished black obsidian, set with heavy silver goblets and plates that gleamed under the unnatural light. Creepers bearing thorns of black ice snaked up the walls, their frozen surfaces glittering. But Cassian commanded all attention. He stood at the head of the table, a figure carved from shadow and moonlight. He'd changed into a tunic of deep charcoal gray that clung to his broad shoulders, dark trousers tucked into worn leather boots. The black curse markings stood out starkly against his skin, visible at his open collar and on his forearms where his sleeves were pushed back. They seemed to pulse faintly in the violet candlelight. His silver eyes found mine across the length of the room, burning with an intensity that made my magic leap beneath my skin. Healer. His voice was rougher, deeper than usual. You clean up well. The backhanded compliment was almost comical, but I couldn't find my voice. The air between us crackled, thick with unspoken energy. Lost for words. Alara. The hint of amusement was back, touching the edges of his deep voice. A low sound vibrated in his chest, halfway between a chuckle and a growl, equally unsettling, equally compelling. Stop it. Cursed alpha. Dangerous pack. Remember why you're here. He moved around the table to pull out a heavy chair near him, the gesture unexpectedly formal in this ruined hall, as I slid into the seat. His fingers brushed my bare arm, just a fleeting contact, but it sent heat shooting through me like lightning. My magic flared, reaching for his darkness instinctively. I heard his sharp intake of breath, felt the jolt through our bond. Careful, healer. His voice ghosted near my ear, sending shivers down my spine. Some fires burn hotter than they appear. I turned my head slightly, finding him far closer than I'd realized, close enough to see the silver flecks warring with shadow in his eyes. I'm not easily frightened. His eyes flashed, the wolf suddenly closer to the surface. The curse markings darkened, pulsing faster. Perhaps you should be. Before I could reply, other figures emerged from the shadows, carrying steaming platters. Wolves in varying states of transformation, moving with surprising grace despite their afflictions, but my appetite had vanished, not with the charged silence stretching between Cassian and me, not with the way my magic kept reaching for his curse, drawn to his power like a moth to a violet flame. What had I just walked into? Wine. Alpha. The query came from Reese. I hadn't noticed the beta approach. His scarred face remained impassive as he held out a crystal decanter filled with a dark ruby-red liquid that shimmered under the candlelight. More wolves brought food, roasted fowl, dark bread, stewed root vegetables, a feast that seemed out of place in this decaying hall, especially for just 2 diners. Will the rest of the pack not be joining us? They cannot. Cassian's voice was tight. At my questioning glance, he elaborated. The curse makes it difficult for most to manage utensils, or maintain a single form long enough for a formal meal. The casual mention of their daily struggle sent a pang of sympathy through me. I could feel their awareness through the bond, their pain a constant thrum beneath the surface. My magic stirred, wanting to reach out. Don't. Cassian's hand covered mine where it rested on the table, stopping the instinctive rise of my power. The contact sent heat flooding up my arm. You need to conserve your strength. Healing Fin took its toll. His thumb brushed against my knuckles, and I wondered if he could feel my pulse leap beneath his touch. This close. His scent was intoxicating pine, cold stone, wild musk making my head swim. I'm fine, I managed, though I made no move to pull my hand away. I should. I recover quickly. His eyes darkened. I am aware of your resilience. Alara, that is not my concern. A loud clatter from a nearby serving table startled us both. Finn stood amidst scattered cutlery, his mismatched ears flattened in embarrassment, though his eyes held a suspicious gleam. The timing felt intentional. Cassian released my hand, a low growl vibrating in his chest. The meal progressed in a strained silence punctuated by further accidents. A wolf stumbling, nearly upsetting the wine decanter, candles flickering out, requiring a servant to lean awkwardly between us. At one point, haunting music drifted from somewhere deep within the keep, a melody filled with longing and sorrow only to cease abruptly when Cassian shot a glare in that direction. They were definitely plotting something. I was about to demand answers when I saw it, the black curse markings spreading rapidly up, Cassian's neck, his features contorting in sudden, sharp agony. Cassian, leave. The word was a strangled gasp. He gripped the edge of the obsidian table, his knuckles white, claws lengthening, tearing grooves into the polished surface. The serving wolves vanished into the shadows, but I held my ground. Let me help. I said leave. His eyes flared pure, burning silver. The man lost momentarily to the beast within. The curse markings writhed across his skin like living ink. Instead of retreating, I rose and moved toward him. My magic surged, reaching for his pain instinctively. The connection between us flared, light meeting darkness, heat meeting ice. A choked groan ripped from his throat as he recoiled from my approaching energy, his chair crashing backward as he stumbled to his feet. Don't touch me. Why not? I advanced, further, power gathering in my palms, warm and golden against the hall's gloom. I can feel it. The curse twisting inside you. Let me ease it. Because, he broke off, body arching as the curse fought his control, trying to force a transformation. Because I cannot control. I placed my hand flat against his chest, directly over his heart. Magic blazed between us. His skin felt fever hot beneath my palm, the curse markings pulsing violently at the contact. He shuddered, a sound caught somewhere between agony and something else. Trust me, I whispered, shaking from the intensity of the connection, from the way his raw power called to mine, from the intoxicating wildness of his scent. His hands clamped down on my shoulders, his grip bruisingly tight. I couldn't tell if he meant to push me away or drag me closer. Alara. My name was a ragged breath against my hair. You have no idea what your touch does. Then tell me. But before words could form, the curse surged violently. I felt it like a wave of poisoned ice, trying to overwhelm my magic, to corrupt my light. Cassian's claws pricked my shoulders through the velvet as he fought for mastery, his face a mask of torment. Without thought, I poured more power into him, desperately trying to soothe the storm raging within him. The bond between us ignited, curse and light and primal magic clashing, merging, becoming something terrifying and exhilarating. His forehead dropped to rest against mine, his breathing harsh, ragged. Why are you not afraid? He whispered, the words barely audible. Because. My mind struggled to form thoughts through the magical feedback loop, through his overwhelming proximity. His power pressed against mine like a physical force, because I, a piercing howl, distant but clear, sliced through the charged air, shattering the moment. Cassian jerked back, as if struck, his silver eyes wide with sudden, sharp alarm. Your room. His voice was barely human, strained and cracked. Go, now, please. But the curse, now. Alara, I fled, not from fear of his rage, but from the intensity of what had passed between us, from the terrifying, undeniable pull I felt toward the heart of his storm, and from the dawning realization that healing him might cost me far more than just a year of my life. The heavy door to my chambers slammed shut, the sound swallowed by the ancient stone. Still, her scent lingered sunlight and herbs woven with the lingering sweetness of the wine we'd barely touched. And underneath, the faint, electric tang of her magic where it had met mine. Her terror when I'd lost control mixed with a stubborn defiance that both infuriated and intrigued the beast. My hands still felt branded where I'd gripped her shoulders. The memory of her collapsing against me when her magic faltered, the surprising fragility beneath her resilience, made both man and wolf stir with a protective instinct I hadn't felt in decades. Through the blood oath, I sensed her exhaustion warring with lingering fear, her magic a low, troubled hum in the room below. This bond, it was a vulnerability I couldn't afford. Every frightened gasp she took seemed to echo in my own chest. Every stubborn lift of her chin called to something primal I thought the curse had obliterated. I stalked to the hearth, bracing my hands against the cold, carved stone. The violet flames cast my reflection, back eyes burning silver. The beast too close. Below, I felt her settle into an uneasy sleep, her magic still unconsciously reaching. Brushing against the pack's pain like moonlight on troubled water. What possessed me to bring her here? Another healer, another potential weakness? But she wasn't like Muriel. The thought was immediate, visceral. Muriel's healing had been a tool, wielded with precision. Alara's poured from her essence, untamed and dangerously pure. She'd faced me down, bargained for her life and her grandmother's, shown more courage than warriors twice her size. Even now, I felt her quiet determination through the bond, her innate desire to mend what was broken. Despite the darkness surrounding her, the wolf grudgingly approved. Wanted to. No, better not to examine that impulse. My claws scraped stone as awareness hit again her scent on my clothes, the phantom warmth of her hand against my chest. The curse stirred, agitated by my turmoil, but its familiar agony felt less sharp, muted by the resonance of her light. Dangerous. Utterly dangerous. I'd thought myself immune after Muriel, had walled off what remained of my heart, dedicating myself solely to the pack's survival. But Alara, she slipped past those defenses as if they weren't there, calling to the tormented man and the primal wolf in ways I dared not analyze. A low whine drifted up from the keep Finn, his pain noticeably eased after her earlier attempt. Her magic had worked. However costly it had been for her, more than Lyra had achieved in years. Hope, that insidious poison, almost as poisonous as the urge to return to her door, to stand guard. A sharp knock broke the silence. Reese. His scent carried urgency. Time to face the questions. Time to reinforce the walls around my thoughts, around the unsettling awareness of the healer sleeping below. Trust was a luxury a cursed alpha could not afford. The war room felt colder tonight, the violet flames in the hearth casting deeper shadows. My pack gathered, their varying states of cursed existence a grim testament to my failures. Those still mostly human sat heavily at the scarred table. The others paced, shadows clinging to their twisted forms. Lyra lay curled near the fire, her aged form almost invisible against the dark stone. Reese stood beside my empty chair, his scarred face taut with impatience. Her magic is potent, alpha. Lyra's thoughts reached me, weary but sharp, but untrained, unshielded. The curse fought her fiercely, drained her dangerously. She eased Finn's suffering, Torvin repeated, clinging to that small victory. We felt it. Temporary relief is not freedom, Kaelen grumbled, his voice distorted by his partial muzzle. We need the curse broken. Lyra's mental voice cut through the dissent. Her magic resonated with yours. Cassian, when you steadied her. The curse. It reacted differently to that combined energy. It recoiled. A ripple of stunned silence passed through the pack. Hope, fragile but persistent, sparked in the heavy air. She is just a healer. I repeated, but the denial tasted like ash. A healer who faced you down, Reese stated flatly, whose magic directly impacted the curse when joined with yours. He looked at Lyra. What does it mean? Elder. Lyra's thoughts grew cautious. The old lore speaks of sympathetic resonance, of magic strengthening magic, of light finding anchor in darkness. No. I slammed my hand on the table, the wood groaning in protest. We will not pursue this fantasy. The curse worsens with every cycle, Lyra insisted, her mental voice unwavering. We lose more ground, you feel it too, if her magic, combined with yours, offers even a sliver of hope. I said no. The curse surged, fueled by my anger, and I fought to keep my form. Her role is healing, nothing more. This council is over. I strode from the room, the weight of their disappointment heavy on my shoulders. This was madness. Hope was madness. Reese followed, catching me before I reached my study. You can't ignore what Lyra suggested, what we all felt. I felt a healer nearly drain herself trying to help one wolf. I rounded on him, letting the silver fire blaze in my eyes. What path are you suggesting we tread? Reese, the one Lyra hinted at. His scarred face was set, determined. The legends about resonant bonds, about connections powerful enough to challenge curses like this. A snarl ripped from my throat, silencing him. Myths born of desperation, perhaps. He didn't back down. But Kaelen lost the ability to form words yesterday. Lyra can barely move some mornings. And you... He met my gaze. Your control is stronger when she is near. Even asleep, 2 floors below, her presence offers some anchor against the curse. You cannot deny it. I turned away. The truth of his words a bitter pill. And what if this connection requires more than proximity? What if it demands closeness, intimacy? What if marking her binds her to this suffering forever? Then she shares our fate. But she took that risk with the oath. He moved to stand beside me, his voice dropping. At least explore it. The pack bonds are clear. Your curse responds to her presence. Her magic resonates with yours. What harm in seeing where it leads? Her life, I said softly. Her soul. We are losing ours anyway. His laugh was harsh. Maybe it's time we risked everything on a legend. We have nothing left to lose. He left me then, alone with the chilling possibility. Through the bond, I felt Alara shift in her sleep below, her magic a soft, steady pulse of light against the keep's oppressive darkness. Court her, risk her, trust again, Muriel's smiling face. Twisted into a mask of betrayal, Alara's exhausted features, lit with fierce determination. Against all reason, I found myself moving back to the writing desk, parchment, ink, quill, an invitation. Preposterous, insane. But my hand moved, forming words I hadn't planned, and somewhere below, I felt Alara stir, her magic reaching unconsciously toward the storm raging within me. The invitation felt clumsy, foreign in my hand as I approached her door again, this time bathed in the weak light of dawn. This was a fool's errand. Yet, the memory of the curse recoiling, however briefly, when our magic had brushed, it offered a sliver of hope I couldn't ignore. Alpha, are you asking her again? Finn's thought, laced with youthful optimism, echoed from the shadows. He materialized beside me, a grotesque but strangely endearing figure in the gloom. Go away. He wagged his malformed tail, clearly unperturbed. I sensed others watching, hidden but present, waiting, drawing a breath that felt heavy with centuries of failure. I knocked. She opened the door, looking more awake now. Though shadows of exhaustion still clung to her, her scent sunlight, herbs, and that underlying hint of rain washed earth hit me like a physical blow. The beast stirred, wanting control. Cassian. Her voice, clear now but still soft, resonated somewhere deep inside me. Gods. Why were simple words so difficult? Dinner. Last night it was. Interrupted. I gestured vaguely. Perhaps tonight. A less formal setting. My study. Her eyebrow arched delicately. Your study. From down the hall came the faint, rhythmic thump of Finn's tail against stone. Alara's gaze flickered past me, a dawning awareness in her eyes. Is this another pack matchmaking scheme? She asked, her voice laced with dry amusement. No. The denial was too quick, too sharp. I forced myself to take a breath, to meet her gaze steadily. It is an opportunity to discuss your findings, your healing efforts, while sharing sustenance. She studied me, head tilted slightly, and I fought the urge to look away. The beast chafed under her direct scrutiny, unnerved by her lack of fear. You remain a terrible liar, Alpha, she observed softly. A growl rumbled in my chest. This was proving even more difficult than anticipated. Behind me, I sensed the pack's hopeful energy waver. Never mind, I snapped, turning away, humiliation warring with frustration. It was ill-conceived. Wait. Her hand caught my arm again. That simple touch sending jolts of awareness through me. I didn't say no. I looked back, startled by the warmth in her eyes, the hint of challenge. Even knowing the danger, knowing the curse, she met me head on. Dinner in your study, she mused. Intriguing, though my attire remains. Practical. Sounds of poorly suppressed jubilation echoed from the watchers. I was going to assign latrine duty for a month. That can be arranged. I managed. Feeling control slip further with each passing second, I stood this close to her. Then I accept. Her smile widened, reaching her eyes this time, and something constricted painfully in my chest. Try not to look so grim, Cassian. It's only dinner. Only dinner, with the fate of my pack potentially hanging in the balance, with legends whispering of connections that could break curses. With her light calling to my darkness in ways I didn't understand, I muttered an assent and retreated, beating back the beast's urge to linger, to inhale her scent. To trace the curve of that smile with my thumb, success? Finn's triumphant thought nearly made me stumble. I shot a glare down the corridor, but it was useless. Their hope was a tangible thing, pulsing through the pack bonds, wrapping around the fragile possibility she represented. What had I agreed to? What desperate path had I just set us upon? My pacing wore a path in the meager rug covering the stone floor of my chamber. Back and forth. Window to hearth to door. The invitation was ludicrous, transparently orchestrated by a desperate pack. Yet, I'd accepted. Less than 2 days in this cursed keep, and already its shadows felt less threatening than the storm brewing inside its master, inside Cassian, through the blood oath. I felt the pack's collective anticipation humming beneath the ever-present thrum of their pain, focused on tonight, on me, on him. What did they expect? What did he expect? A scratch at the door. Finn again, his misshapen form somehow endearing. He carried another bundle, this one of deep blue wool, soft and finely woven despite the subtle shifting patterns of the curse woven into its threads. He dropped it on the bed, then sat, watching me with those disconcertingly intelligent eyes. For dinner, I presume. I lifted the garment, a simple, long-sleeved tunic dress, elegant in its austerity, practical, yet beautiful in its own shadowed way. Finn's tail gave a tentative thump. Still no hints about what your pack is plotting. He merely tilted his head. the gesture oddly human despite his distorted features. Definitely plotting. Whispers drifted from the corridor again, clearer this time. Lyra's instructions were specific. Just enough proximity. Hope the alpha doesn't bite our heads off. Proximity. Instructions. My unease grew. This wasn't just dinner. This was an experiment. A test. Using me. Using Aureus. Anger warred with a strange flicker of anticipation. What exactly did Lyra think proximity might achieve? I looked back at Finn. Should I be running for the hills? More thumping. Deeply suspicious. Yet, I found myself changing into the blue dress. It fit as perfectly as the green velvet had, the soft wool whispering against my skin. The dark color suited me, made my eyes seem lighter, my hair richer. When I glanced in the cracked mirror, the woman staring back looked less like a village healer and more like someone who belonged in the Alpha's study. I took a steadying breath, tucking a sprig of dried rosemary into my braid, this time for remembrance of grandmother, of why I was here. Not to be drawn into pack schemes or lose myself in the tormented silver eyes of their Alpha. Not to feel this flutter of anticipation at the thought of seeing him again, of being close to him in the intimacy of his private study. Focus, healing, survival. Finn led me through corridors that felt subtly different tonight, less oppressive. Or was that just my imagination? Fueled by the pack's strange hope. The tension in the blood oath bond stretched tighter as we approached the Alpha's tower, culminating in a near physical thrum as we reached his study door. It stood slightly ajar. Inside, violet firelight danced, casting long shadows. And I could feel him. His presence filled the room beyond, a vortex of power, pain, and tightly controlled darkness. Taking another breath, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Hundreds, no, thousands of candles flickered from every surface, their violet flames reflecting in polished wood and dark glass, bathing the room in an ethereal, intimate glow. The air hung thick with the scent of old parchment, beeswax, wood smoke, and that intoxicating blend of pine and storm that was uniquely Cassian. He stood near the hearth, one hand braced on the stone mantel, staring into the flames. He'd changed into a simple black shirt, open at the collar, revealing the stark black curse markings against the skin of his throat and chest. They seemed to pulse faintly, absorbing the violet light. When he turned, the sheer intensity in his silver eyes stole the air from my lungs. Healer. His voice was a low rumble, vibrating through the charged atmosphere. You came. You invited me. I sounded breathless. Damn it. My magic stirred, reaching for his darkness across the space between us. A flicker of something surprise, pain, hunger, crossed his face before being masked by cold control. So I did. He gestured toward two worn leather chairs near the fire. Sit. Share my solitude. I moved toward the indicated chair, acutely aware of his gaze following my every step. Aware of the tension coiling in his powerful frame, aware of the pack's hopeful energy pressing against the bond, even from afar. Wine. He moved to a sideboard, pouring a dark red liquid into two heavy crystal goblets. Thank you. He handed me a goblet, his fingers brushing mine. The contact was electric, sending sparks arcing through the bond, making my magic leap. I saw him flinch, saw the curse markings darken momentarily before he regained control. He took the opposite chair, the firelight playing across the sharp angles of his face, highlighting the silver streaks in his dark hair. We sat in silence for a long moment, the only sounds the crackle of the fire and the distant whisper of wind outside the keep. The pack is hopeful. I said finally, needing to break the charged silence. About tonight. About us. His jaw tightened. They grasp at legends, at straws. He took a long swallow of wine, his eyes fixed on the flames. Desperation breeds foolishness. And what do you think, Cassian? I leaned forward slightly, drawn by the vulnerability flickering beneath his harsh words. Is it foolish? He finally met my gaze, and the raw conflict in his silver eyes made my breath catch. I think. His voice dropped lower, rougher. I think having you this close is the most dangerous kind of foolishness I've indulged in since the curse began. Before I could respond, before I could process the implications of his admission, a spasm of pain contorted his features. He dropped the goblet crystal shattering against the stone hearth as a low growl ripped from his throat. The curse markings blazed across his skin like black fire. Cassian! I started to rise, magic surging, but he waved me back, his hand clenched into a fist. Stay back, he gritted out, fighting for control as his body trembled. Just curse flare happens. But this felt different from the subtle agony I usually sensed from him. This was violent, consuming. My magic reached for him instinctively, wanting to soothe, to help. Don't. His voice was sharp, desperate. Your magic. When it touches mine, it makes it worse right now. Amplifies. He broke off with another groan, doubling over in the chair. I hesitated, torn between his command and my healer's instinct. But the way the curse markings writhed, the sheer agony radiating from him, I moved toward him slowly. Let me try, I whispered, kneeling beside his chair. Just let me see if... He flinched as my hand neared his arm, but didn't pull away completely. Encouraged, I gently placed my palm against his skin, letting my magic flow, soft and tentative. The reaction was immediate, violent. He roared, throwing himself back in the chair as if burned. Magic, his and mine, exploded outwards, extinguishing half the candles in the room, plunging us into deeper shadow. The curse markings blazed with terrifying intensity, no longer just black lines but seeming fissures into utter darkness. And through our bond, I felt something shift, something break free, not the curse weakening. Something else, something ancient and powerful stirring beneath it, responding to the touch of my magic in a way that felt fundamentally different. Primal. He stared at me, eyes wide, silver irises almost swallowed by black pupils. Pain still radiated from him, but beneath it pulsed a raw power that hadn't been there before. What? He breathed, the word ragged. Did you just do? The silence in the study stretched, thick with residual magic and unspoken questions. Dante Cassian stared at me, his silver eyes turbulent. The black curse markings pulsing faintly against his skin where they'd receded from their earlier terrifying intensity. The primal energy I'd felt stir beneath the curse had settled, leaving behind a low thrum of power that resonated deep within my own magic. I don't know, I whispered, still kneeling beside his chair, my hand hovering near his arm. Afraid to touch him again after that violent reaction, I just reached out, like always. He drew a ragged breath, his gaze fixed on my hand, not like always. His voice was rough, strained. This was different. Your magic. It didn't just push against the curse. It felt like it reached through it, touched something, deeper. He met my eyes, and the raw confusion there mirrored my own. What? Arie? You? Ilara? The question hung between us, heavy with implication. I shook my head helplessly. I told you, just a healer. My mother was no ordinary healer. His voice held certainty now. Magic like yours, power that can bypass a curse rooted in blood magic to touch the primal energy beneath. That's not common village healing. He rose slowly from the chair, moving with a fluid grace that seemed subtly different now, less bound by the curse's constant weight. He began to pace before the hearth, the firelight catching the complex patterns of the curse markings still visible on his skin. They seemed quieter now, less agitated. Lyra spoke of legends, he murmured, more to himself than to me. Of sunstone healers, ancient lines thought lost. He stopped, turning to face me, his expression unreadable. Magic born of light, capable of purifying corruption, of restoring balance. Sunstone healer. The name resonated somewhere deep inside me, stirring echoes I didn't understand. Made my own magic hum beneath my skin. But they were just stories, he continued, frustration entering his tone. Whispers from a forgotten age. He raked a hand through his silver-streaked hair. Until you. He moved closer, stopping inches away. The air between us vibrated with energy, his primal magic reaching for my light instinctively answering. When you touched me just now, when our magic clashed, I felt the curse yield, not just retreat but falter, as if your light burned away some essential part of its binding. My breath caught. Could it be possible? Could my magic truly do more than just ease the symptoms? Could it fight the curse itself? Hope, fragile but fierce, surged through me, then let me try again. I reached for him, needing to know, needing to test this possibility, carefully this time. Maybe if we control the connection. He caught my wrist, his grip warm, strong, sending that familiar jolt through me. But this time, the energy that flowed between us felt cleaner, less tainted by the curse's darkness. His primal magic met mine, tasting it, testing it, before pulling back slightly. No. The word was firm but lacked its earlier harshness. Not like this, not uncontrolled. He studied my face, his thumb brushing against the silver crescent mark on my palm. Lyra believes this connection between us, this resonance. It might be the key, but she also warned of the danger, trying to force it, especially with magic as strong as yours. He didn't need to finish the sentence. I'd felt the backlash when our powers had clashed violently, had sensed the raw, untamed energy that had briefly overwhelmed him. What are you proposing? A different approach. He finally released my wrist, though the energy still hummed between us. Our original bargain, healing in exchange for sanctuary. But amended. He hesitated, silver eyes searching mine. Lyra suggests. Structured interaction, controlled contact, a way to let our magics touch, mingle, without risking another uncontrolled surge. My heart hammered against my ribs. Controlled contact. What did that mean? She believes, he continued, his voice dropping lower, becoming rougher. That brief, intentional moments of connection might allow your magic to slowly cleanse the curse where it's bound to my primal core without overwhelming either of us. He looked away, toward the fire. She suggested, kisses. The word hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Heat flooded my cheeks. Kisses. Not driven by desperate bargains or accidental proximity, but deliberate, intentional. An experiment in magic and healing. Just kisses. The word felt thick on my tongue. Brief. Controlled. He met my gaze again, the firelight reflecting in his silver eyes, making them look like molten metal. Once each evening. Here. A way to let our magics interact safely, to study the effect, to see if Lyra's theories hold any truth. My mind raced. This was insane. Kissing the cursed alpha, willingly entering that dangerous proximity every single night. But the memory of the curse yielding, however briefly, when our magic touched, the hope of truly helping, not just easing pain, and in return, I had to ask. Though part of me already knew the answer, I was still bound by the blood oath. In return, his voice held a new depth. A vulnerability I hadn't heard before. You continue to heal my pack, and I offer you everything I possess that might aid your own healing arts. Access to the most ancient texts in our library. Texts even Lyra hasn't fully deciphered. Knowledge of herbs and remedies lost to the outside world. Our pack's accumulated wisdom, gathered over centuries. He paused. And I offer you my trust, healer. Something I have not given lightly since Muriel's betrayal. The offer stunned me, not just knowledge, but trust. From this guarded, tormented alpha who had every reason to despise healers, to suspect betrayal at every turn. It was a risk, a huge risk, for both of us. Kissing him, deliberately inviting that connection, could be disastrous, could overwhelm my magic, or shatter his control completely. But the alternative, watching the pack suffer, watching him fight this curse alone, knowing I might hold the key but be too afraid to use it, I met his gaze, seeing the wary hope warring with ingrained suspicion in those silver depths, seeing the man beneath the curse, the alpha burdened by responsibility, reaching out despite his fear. I agree, I whispered, the words sealing a new bargain, far more dangerous and intimate than the first. One kiss, each evening, to see if my light can truly fight your darkness. A shudder ran through his powerful frame, and the curse markings pulsed once, violently, before settling again. He nodded, the movement stiff. Tomorrow evening, then, here, he gestured toward the shattered goblet by the hearth. Perhaps you should go now, Alara. Before the fragile control we'd established shattered completely, I understood. The energy between us was still too volatile, too raw. I rose, my legs feeling strangely unsteady. At the door, I paused, looking back at him. He stood silhouetted against the firelight, a figure of immense power and profound loneliness. Tomorrow, I confirmed softly, and slipped out into the corridor, leaving him alone with the flickering violet flames and the dangerous hope I'd just agreed to share. The following evening, the air in Cassian's study felt different, still charged, still heavy with his presence, but laced with a nervous anticipation that mirrored my own. The shattered goblet had been cleared away, the spilled wine scrubbed from the stone, but the memory of last night's explosive connection lingered. He stood by the window this time, looking out at the twilight gathering over the Whisperwind peaks. He turned as I entered, his expression carefully neutral, but I saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. Healer. His voice was carefully measured. Alpha. I moved further into the room, stopping several feet away. The space between us felt both vast and impossibly small. We stood in silence for a long moment, the only sound the crackle of the fire. My magic reached for his instinctively, but I pulled it back, remembering Lyra's warnings relayed through Reese about control, about letting the connection build slowly, deliberately. Are you ready? His voice was rough. I nodded, though my heart hammered against my ribs. Ready. How could anyone be ready for this? Deliberately kissing a cursed alpha werewolf as a magical experiment. He moved toward me, stopping an arm's length away. close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell that wild scent of pine and storm. Close enough to see the struggle in his silver eyes as his beast warred with his resolve. "Remember," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "Brief, controlled." Then he leaned down, and his mouth touched mine. It wasn't like our first accidental brush of lips, nor the desperate claiming during the curse flare. This was hesitant, tentative, a soft pressure, seeking permission, testing the waters. My magic surged instinctively at the contact, golden light rising beneath my skin. I felt his power answer, his primal energy reaching for mine, but tempered, restrained. The curse markings on his skin pulsed faintly, darkness meeting light across the fragile connection of our lips. He deepened the kiss slightly, a soft exploration that sent shivers down my spine. His hand came up to cup my cheek, his thumb brushing gently against my skin. The simple touch sent sparks through our bond, making my magic hum louder. I leaned into the kiss, my own hands rising hesitantly to rest against his chest. Beneath my palms, I felt the steady beat of his heart, felt the curse markings stir restlessly at my touch, felt his power surge, straining against his careful control. He pulled back abruptly, breaking the contact, though his hand remained on my cheek for a heartbeat longer. His breathing was uneven, his silver eyes turbulent with warring emotions. "Enough," he rasped, stepping back, putting physical distance between us again. My own breath came in shaky gasps. My lips tingled. My magic pulsed beneath my skin, reaching after his retreating power. Even that brief, controlled kiss had stirred something deep within us both. Deet. I swallowed hard. Did it help? He closed his eyes briefly, forehead furrowed as if assessing the curse's hold. When he opened them again, there was a flicker of something new. Surprise. Hope. Yes, he admitted, his voice rough with disbelief. The burning. It's lessened. More than I expected from such brief contact. A thrill shot through me, chasing away the lingering tension. It worked. Even controlled. Even brief. The connection helped. Lyra had been right. But the way Cassian watched me now, the hunger barely banked behind his control, told me this path would be far from easy. Told me that maintaining brief and controlled might prove the hardest challenge of all. Night after night, the ritual repeated. The walk to his study, the charged silence, the brief, carefully controlled kiss. Each time, the connection flared brighter, hotter. Each time, the curse retreated further, lingered longer in remission after our contact. Each time, the struggle for control etched deeper lines around Cassian's eyes, tightened the tension in his powerful frame. He never let it go further, never let his hands roam, never deepened the kiss beyond that careful exploration. But I felt the strain in him, felt the beast prowling closer to the surface with each encounter, felt his primal magic reaching for my light with growing hunger. And God's help me, I felt my own control fraying too, felt my magic yearning for more than just that brief, tantalizing touch. Felt my body remembering the heat of his touch during that curse flare, the possessive claiming after the disastrous dinner. During the days, I threw myself into healing the pack. With Cassian's curse lessened, even slightly, a subtle shift rippled through the bonds. Finn's transformations grew marginally less painful. Kaelen regained the ability to form short sentences. Lyra reported feeling a flicker of her old magic stirring, though her form remained unchanged. Small victories, hard won, but victories nonetheless. Cassian granted me access to the ancient library, a vast, dusty chamber filled with scrolls and volumes bound in strange leather that hinted at forgotten lore. Lyra, through Reese, guided my studies, pointing me toward texts on blood magic, curse bindings, and the near mythical sunstone healers. The more I read, the more questions arose. The legends spoke of Lightbearers, yes, but it always intertwined with protectors, with specific bloodlines capable of wielding primal magic, guardians, like Cassian's line. Was there more to our connection than just sympathetic resonance? Was this why my magic affected his curse so profoundly? One evening, after our ritual kiss left the air crackling with unspoken tension, I dared to ask. The texts Lyra showed me, I began, forcing myself to hold his gaze despite the heat simmering there. They speak of Lightbearers and guardians, of ancient alliances, of magic that resonates between specific bloodlines. Cassian went very still, the curse markings pulsing against his skin. Legends, Alara, nothing more, are they? I stepped closer, unable to stop myself. My magic reached for his, sensing the truth beneath his denial. Because I feel it too, Cassian. This connection between us, it's more than just healing magic meeting a curse. It feels older, deeper. He turned away abruptly, moving to stare into the fire. You feel the blood oath, the proximity, nothing more. I felt your primal magic. I pressed, moving to stand beside him, close enough to feel his heat. When my magic touched it, it felt like coming home. He flinched as if struck. A low growl vibrated in his chest. You don't know what you're saying, don't I? I reached out, hesitated, then placed my hand gently on his arm, over the curse markings. Golden light sparked between us. I feel your power recognizing mine, Cassian. Just like my magic recognizes yours, why deny it? His muscles bunched beneath my touch. For a moment, I thought he would pull away, thought the beast would surge forward. But instead, he slowly turned his head, his silver eyes filled with an agony that had nothing to do with the curse. Because, he whispered, the sound raw, broken. If those legends are true, if our bloodlines truly are connected in the ways the old texts suggest, then what I feel for you is not born of choice, it is destiny. A bond forged before we ever met. He met my gaze, and the vulnerability there stole my breath. And how can I trust that? Alara, how can I trust feelings potentially dictated by ancient magic, by fate? Especially when the last healer I trusted, he couldn't finish the sentence. The betrayal still too raw. Understanding crashed through me. He wasn't just fighting the beast, the curse. He was fighting the possibility that his feelings for me weren't real, weren't his own, that they were merely an echo of some ancient predetermined bond. What you feel is real, I whispered, pouring all the certainty I possessed into the words, into the magic flowing between us. Bond or no bond, curse or no curse. What I feel is real. He searched my face, his expression torn. Hope warred with centuries of pain and betrayal in those silver depths. How can you be sure? Because I leaned closer, rising on my toes until our lips were breaths apart. Magic can't create this. And I kissed him, not the controlled, hesitant touch of our nightly ritual, but a kiss filled with all the emotion, all the certainty, all the love that had grown in the shadows of his cursed keep. For a heartbeat, he remained frozen. Then, with a groan that seemed torn from his very soul, he responded, his arms wrapped around me. pulling me tight against his chest as his mouth claimed mine with desperate hunger. Magic exploded between us, light and shadow, primal power and healing grace, curse and connection twisting together, merging, becoming something new, something powerful, something that felt undeniably real. The curse markings blazed beneath my hands, fighting against the surge of pure emotion, pure magic. But this time, they felt weaker, less substantial, as if acknowledging the truth between us somehow diminished their hold. When we finally broke apart, gasping for breath, the air in the study crackled with energy. The curse had retreated further than ever before, leaving his skin almost clear, his eyes bright with primal power barely contained. Alara. My name was a prayer on his lips. But before he could say more, before we could explore this fragile new understanding, a frantic pounding echoed from the study door. Alpha, Alpha Cassian, the urgency in Torvin's voice, cracking with panic even through the heavy oak, shattered the fragile peace. Cassian stiffened, the primal energy coiling tight within him again. Protective instincts instantly overriding the vulnerability he'd just shown. He released me reluctantly, putting space between us as he called. Enter, Torvin burst in, his human features pale beneath the mottling of fur, his breathing ragged. Lorcan's wolves, Alpha, on the northern ridge. They have Finn. Ice shot through my veins. Finn, the young wolf who'd volunteered for my first healing attempt, who'd brought me the dress for that disastrous dinner, who'd watched our nightly ritual with such hopeful eyes. Cassian moved with blinding speed, the transformation ripping through him, not agonizing this time, but swift, powerful, primal energy barely contained within shifting flesh and bone. In seconds, the massive black wolf stood where the man had been, silver eyes blazing with lethal intent. He launched himself toward the door, a low growl rumbling in his chest, but paused, looking back at me. An apology, a warning. Then he was gone, Torvin scrambling to follow. The study felt suddenly cold, empty. My magic reached instinctively after Cassian's retreating power, tangling with the echoes of our kiss, with the terrifying reality of the pack's vulnerability. Lorcan Stonefang, the rival Alpha Reese had mentioned. Testing borders was one thing, but taking a pack member, that was an act of war. My hands trembled as I moved to the window, peering out into the twilight, searching fruitlessly for any sign of movement on the distant northern ridge. Fear warred with a fierce, protective anger. Finn was part of this pack now, me, Tino pack. Through the blood oath bond, I felt the pack's collective alarm surge. Felt wolves converging from patrol routes. Felt Reese coordinating defenses from within the keep. Felt Lyra's ancient magic stirring, reaching out, trying to shield her vulnerable pack members. And I felt Cassian, felt his controlled fury, his primal power straining against the leash of command as he raced toward the confrontation, felt his desperate need to protect his own. I couldn't just stand here. Healing was my purpose, my strength. Finn would likely be injured. Others might be too, ignoring the rules about staying within the keep, ignoring the voice of caution whispering about danger. I ran from the study, following the fading echoes of Cassian's power toward the northern ridge, toward the fight, toward whatever fate awaited us in the deepening shadows. The climb was treacherous in the fading light, my boots slipping on loose scree, branches tearing at my clothes. But the urgency pulling me forward was stronger than caution. Through the bond, I felt the confrontation drawing nearer, Cassian's power clashing against another, equally strong alpha presence. Lurkin. I crested the ridge just as the moons broke through the swirling clouds, bathing the scene below in their eerie lavender light. A small group of wolves faced off in a narrow clearing. Cassian stood protectively before a trembling Finn, whose partially shifted form looked even more vulnerable out here. Facing them was another massive wolf, powerfully built, his fur the color of slate-gray stone, eyes burning with cold ambition. Lurkin Stonefang. Flanking him were 3 other wolves, lean and dangerous-looking. Release the pup. Stonefang. Cassian's voice, though distorted by his wolf form, carried unmistakable command. This aggression ends now. Lorcan threw back his head in a mocking wolfish laugh. Aggression! We merely found your stray wandering too close to our borders. Thought we'd return him. He bears my pack scent. He was on Shadowfen land. Lands that are poorly guarded. Lorcan countered, circling slightly. Lands protected by a cursed alpha whose power wanes with every moon. His gaze flickered toward me where I stood hidden at the edge of the clearing. He'd scented me. Or does it? You seem stronger tonight, Vargos, less burdened. Has your little human healer worked some new miracle? Cassian's growl was low, dangerous. He shifted slightly, shielding Finn more completely. What happens within my pack is no concern of yours, isn't it? Lorcan stopped pacing, meeting Cassian's gaze directly. When your curse weakens the oldest pack, when the guardian line falters, it becomes the concern of wall packs, especially those strong enough to take up the burden you can no longer carry. He was challenging Cassian's right to rule, his pack's ancient duty. You overstep, Stonefang. Do I? Lorcan took a deliberate step forward. Or do I merely state the obvious? The council grows restless. Whispers spread. Perhaps it is time for new leadership. For strength unmarred by curses and human distractions. His gaze flicked toward me again, dismissive yet assessing. Through the bond, I felt Cassian's control fray. Felt the primal power surge beneath his skin, straining against the remnants of the curse. The air crackled with tension. Leave, Cassian snarled, planting his massive paws more firmly. Now. While you still can. Lorcan's only answer was a lunge. The clearing exploded into violence. Cassian met Lorcan head-on, a clash of pure power that shook the very ground. Fangs flashed, claws tore, growls ripped through the night air. Lorcan's wolves surged forward, aiming for Cassian's flanks, but Reese and 2 other Shadowfen warriors burst from the trees, intercepting them. Finn scrambled back toward me, whimpering, his eyes wide with terror. I pulled him behind a rocky outcrop, my own magic rising. Ready to heal, to shield. The fight was brutal, primal, Cassian, despite the lingering curse, fought with the ferocity of an alpha protecting his own, his primal magic flaring in bursts of raw power. But Lorcan was younger, uncursed, driven by ambition, and he hadn't come alone. One of Lorcan's wolves broke past Reese, lunging for Cassian's unprotected side. Before I could react, before Cassian could turn, Finn launched himself forward. The small, half-shifted wolf slammed into the attacker, teeth finding purchase on a foreleg despite the size difference. The attacker yelped, momentarily distracted, giving Cassian the opening he needed. He spun, jaws clamping down, ending the threat swiftly, but not before Finn was thrown aside, hitting the rocks near me with a sickening thud. Finn, I scrambled to his side. His breathing was shallow. His eyes glazed with pain. Blood matted the rough fur on his shoulder where claws had raked deep. My magic flared as I pressed my hands to the wound, pouring light and warmth into his small, trembling form. The battle raged nearby. I could feel Cassian's fury through the bond, fueled now by the injury to one of his youngest, most vulnerable pack members. He fought like a cornered storm, driving Lorcan back step by step. Suddenly, Lorcan disengaged, calling his remaining wolves back. He stood panting, malice burning in his eyes as he looked from Cassian to where I knelt beside Finn. "This isn't over, Vargos," he snarled. "The council will hear of this, of your weakness, your reliance on a human." He glanced pointedly at me. "Enjoy your healer while you can. Some powers attract unwanted attention." With a final, menacing glare, he vanished into the shadows, his wolves melting away behind him. Silence fell, broken only by Finn's pained whimpers and the heavy panting of the Shadowfen wolves. Cassian shifted back to human form, ignoring his own minor wounds as he knelt beside me, his hand gently touching Finn's head. "How is he?" His voice was rough with concern. "He'll live." My magic flowed into the wound, knitting torn flesh, easing the pain. "Brave pup saved your life." Cassian's jaw tightened, his silver eyes filled with a cold fury directed at the retreating Lorcan. "This changes things." His gaze met mine over Finn's trembling form. "Lorcan knows something. About you, about your magic. He wouldn't have mentioned unwanted attention otherwise." A chill traced my spine despite the warmth of my magic. The covens, or something else. "We need to get Finn back to the keep." Cassian carefully lifted the injured wolf into his arms. "And we need to prepare." Lorcan's challenge wasn't just words tonight. He declared his intentions. As we made our way back down the treacherous path, Cassian carrying Finn, the pack closing ranks around us, I felt a shift in the bond. The fragile peace we'd found in his study felt like a distant memory, replaced by the grim reality of the threats closing in. Lorcan's words echoed in my mind. Some powers attract unwanted attention. My magic, my heritage as a Lightbearer, it wasn't just a potential key to breaking the curse. It was a beacon, drawing dangers I was only beginning to comprehend. And Cassian, my love, my alpha, stood directly in their path, protecting me, protecting his pack, fighting a war on too many fronts. My light might fight his darkness. But what happened when the shadows gathered against us both? 2 weeks passed in a blur of heightened security and simmering tension. Guards patrolled the keep's corridors constantly. Reese rarely left Cassian's side. Lyra spent hours poring over ancient texts in the library, searching for answers about Lightbearers, curses, and the rival packs now circling like vultures. Our nightly ritual continued in Cassian's study, supervised by an increasingly weary Reese. The kisses remained brief, controlled, but the energy between us grew more potent with each touch. The curse retreated further each night, lingering longer in remission, allowing glimpses of the powerful, unburdened alpha Cassian might have been. Glimpses that made my heart ache with love and longing. His control, however, felt increasingly fragile. The beast prowled closer to the surface, hunger warring with the fierce protectiveness that now defined his every interaction with me. He rarely touched me outside our nightly ritual, yet his gaze followed my every move, possessive heat burning in those silver depths. My own magic grew stronger, too, resonating with the keep's ancient power, responding more readily to Cassian's primal energy. I felt the change within me, a deepening awareness of the light I carried, and a growing certainty that my path was irrevocably intertwined with his, with this pack, with this cursed land. Finn recovered quickly under my care. His adoration bordering on worship after the incident on the ridge. He became my shadow, my self-appointed protector within the keep. His youthful optimism a bright counterpoint to the tension thickening the air. Grandmother's condition. According to the infrequent messages Cassian managed to arrange through trusted traders, had stabilized thanks to the moon petal bloom and the supplies, but she wasn't improving further. I needed to find a way to enhance the bloom's potency. Something the ancient texts hinted was possible with the right combination of light magic and primal energy. Something only Cassian and I, together, might achieve. But the greatest change was in the pack itself. With the curse significantly lessened by our nightly connection, transformations became easier, less agonizing. Those few still trapped between forms found moments of clarity, flashes of their human selves returning. Hope, real and tangible, began to bloom in the shadows of Blackwood Keep. It made the approaching council meeting, now only days away, feel even more critical. Lorik and Stonefang would undoubtedly use the attack on Finn, twisting the narrative to paint Cassian as reckless. Unable to control his territory or protect his pack, he would use my presence, my influence, as further proof of Cassian's weakness. He's trying to isolate you, I murmured one evening, tracing the now faint curse markings on Cassian's chest after our supervised kiss. Reese had already retreated, leaving us in the charged intimacy of the firelit study. To make the other alphas doubt your strength before the council convenes. Cassian's hand covered mine, his touch sending familiar sparks through our bond. He underestimates the loyalty of the old packs and the power of hope. His eyes held mine, silver depths swirling with emotions he no longer tried to hide completely. You gave them that back, Alara. Gave me that back. It's not enough. Frustration tightened my voice. Easing the curse isn't breaking it. There has to be more we can do. The texts Lyra showed me, they speak of amplifying light magic through primal energy. Of rituals, he went still, his hand tightening on mine. No, too dangerous. We don't know enough about your magic, about how it interacts with mine, with the curse. But grandmother needs more than just the bloom, and the pack deserves freedom, not just relief. I pulled my hand away, needing space. Why won't you even consider it? Are you afraid? Yes. The word ripped from him, raw and rough. He surged to his feet, pacing before the fire like a caged storm. I am afraid. Alara. Afraid of unleashing something we can't control. Afraid of what that combined power might do to you. Afraid of losing you. He stopped, turning to face me, his expression ravaged by conflicting emotions. Every time we touch, every time our magic meets, the beast screams to claim you fully, to mark you, to bind you so completely that nothing could ever take you from me. The nightly kisses. They are agony, knowing I cannot take more, knowing I shouldn't want more. He moved toward me, stopping inches away, his power washing over me, primal and possessive. Pushing further, attempting some ritual based on fragmented legends. It could shatter my control completely, could force the marking, could bind you to whatever darkness remains. Or, I whispered, tilting my chin up to meet his gaze, it could break the curse entirely. It could set you free. The hope in my voice seemed to wound him. We don't know that. And the risk. His hand came up, his thumb brushing my cheek with infinite tenderness. The risk is too great. I won't gamble with your soul. Alara, not even for my pack's freedom. Tears pricked my eyes. His love, his fierce determination to protect me even at the cost of his own continued suffering, was overwhelming. But it was also frustrating. It's not just your decision. Cassian. My voice trembled slightly. It's my magic too, my choice. Before he could argue, before the fragile understanding between us could break, a frantic howl echoed from the courtyard below. Not alarm, not attack, something else. Joy. Pure, unadulterated joy. We reached the window just as moonlight bathed the courtyard, revealing a scene that made my breath catch. Pack members, dozens of them, were shifting, not with the agonizing slowness of the curse, but fluidly, easily, human forms melting into sleek wolf shapes and back again. Laughter echoed off the stone walls, mingled with whoops of sheer delight. In the center stood Lyra, no longer an age-twisted wolf, but a tall, elegant woman with flowing silver hair, tears streaming down her face as she watched her pack reclaim their birthright. Beside her, Reese flexed fingers that were fully human, the milky whiteness gone from his eye, the scars on his face faded to pale lines. The curse, it was breaking, not because of a ritual, not because of some grand magical clash, but slowly, steadily, eroded by the persistent touch of our combined magic, by the hope we'd kindled, by the love we hadn't dared to fully embrace but couldn't deny. Cassian pulled me tight against his chest, his own body trembling, not with the curse, but with overwhelming emotion. Through our bond, I felt his disbelief warring with staggering relief, felt decades of pain and guilt begin to recede like a fading tide. The curse markings on his skin flickered, fainter now than they'd ever been. Not gone entirely, but weakened, loosened. It's working, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Gods, Alara, it's working. Below, the celebration grew wilder. Wolves danced with humans, their forms shifting seamlessly in the moonlight. Music started Reed, his hands finally whole, drawing haunting melodies from a recovered violin. This was it, the turning point. Hope, no longer fragile, but blazing bright against the shadows. But even as joy surged through me, a cold dread lingered. Lorcan Stonefang was still out there. The council meeting loomed, and the curse, though weakened, was not yet broken. We had won a major battle, but the war for the Shadowfen Pack's soul, and for our future, was far from over. The journey to Wolf's Crag, the ancient fortress where the council convened, felt different this time. Last time, the carriage had been filled with tension, unspoken accusations, and the weight of Cassian's determination to send me away. This time, he rode beside me, his hand holding mine, our fingers intertwined. The curse markings were faint shadows beneath his skin, barely visible unless you knew where to look. The oppressive weight of the curse had lifted not just from him, but from the very air we breathed. His beast still prowled close, protective and possessive, but the frantic edge was gone, replaced by a quiet certainty that resonated through our bond. He still intended for me to stay close to Raleigh's beta during the proceedings, still worried about unwanted attention. But the fear that had driven him before had lessened, replaced by a fierce, unwavering love that flowed between us, a tangible force. The other alphas gathered in the great hall seemed to sense the change immediately. Their greetings were still wary. The Guardian Pack's curse, breaking after decades, was unprecedented, but the undercurrent of suspicion had shifted. Lorcan Stonefang stood apart, his expression thunderous, radiating impotent fury. The council proceedings felt almost anticlimactic after the drama of our last visit. Evidence of Lorcan's continued aggression was presented. Censure was formally delivered, and warnings were issued. He offered no defense this time, merely endured the judgment with simmering resentment. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone knew it. But it was afterward, as the alphas mingled before departing, that the true test came. Remarkable. Alexanor of Blackburn approached, his shrewd eyes moving between Cassian and me. The change in your pack, in you, is undeniable. Guardian, your healer possesses a rare gift indeed. She is my mate, Cassian stated, his voice clear but firm, leaving no room for misinterpretation. His hand tightened on mine, a silent declaration to everyone present. A ripple of surprise went through the nearby alphas. Marking was one thing, claiming a human healer as a true mate, especially one whose magic had seemingly broken a generations-old curse, was another entirely. A Lightbearer mate, Raleigh murmured, joining us, her eyes warm with understanding. The legend spoke of such pairings, though none have been seen in centuries. Light and primal power, balancing each other, strengthening each other. Lorcan scoffed from nearby. Legends won't protect you from the coven, Vargos. They know what she is now. They won't stop until they have her. Let them try, Cassian growled, pulling me closer. His primal magic rising protectively around us. They will find the Guardian pack is not so easily broken, as we prepared to leave Wolf's Crag. News arrived via Messenger Hawk, a missive bearing Raleigh's seal. Her contacts in the southern human lands had found whispers, rumors of a young woman with protective light magic, living in seclusion with an older woman near the Veiled Mountains. A woman named Ivy. My breath caught. Ivy. My sister. Alive. Tears blurred my vision as I showed the message to Cassian. Through our bond, I felt his immediate resolve, his unwavering support. We'll find her, he promised, his hand covering mine. After we ensure the pack is secure, after we prepare for the Coven's inevitable response, then we find your sister. The journey back to Blackwood Keep was filled not with tension, but with quiet planning. Strategies for strengthening defenses, securing alliances, and preparing for the Crimson Circle's retaliation. And woven through it all, the hopeful thread of finding Ivy, of finally understanding my past, my heritage. Returning to the keep felt like coming home in a way I'd never experienced before. The oppressive darkness was gone, replaced by the vibrant energy of a pack reborn. Wolves shifted freely. Laughter echoed in the halls, and the ancient stones themselves seemed to hum with restored primal power. That night, lying tangled together in the massive bed in Cassian's chambers, the curse marks faded almost entirely from his skin. I traced the faint silver crescent mark on my own palm. The blood oath, sworn in desperation, felt like a lifetime ago. It's not truly over, is it? I whispered, watching the twin moons paint silver patterns across his bare chest. No, his arm tightened around me. The Coven won't forgive this, and Lorcan, his ambition makes him dangerous. He pressed a kiss to my hair, but we'll face them together. As mates, as Alpha and Luna of the Shadowfen pack. Luna. The title settled over me, surprisingly comfortable. I wasn't just Alara the healer anymore, I was his. This pack was mine. And somewhere I had a sister waiting to be found. My magic reached for his, light twining with primal power. No longer fighting darkness, but embracing the strength we found in each other. The curse hadn't broken exactly as the legends foretold, but maybe that was the point. Maybe true love wasn't about magically fixing everything, but about choosing to stand together, to fight together, curse or no curse, whatever comes, I murmured, pressing closer to his warmth. Feeling our bond hum between us, strong and steady and true, we face it together. And for the first time since venturing into the Whisperwind Peaks, I truly believed we could face anything. The shadows might gather again, but they could not extinguish the light we had found in each other. Our story was just beginning.